Hey there, welcome to this quiet ASMR history video experience. Tonight, we'll take a slow, soft step back in time. Back to a world of candlelit halls, grand staircases, and velvet-draped parlors. This is America's Gilded Age, a time when carriages rolled through tree-lined streets, when gas lamps flickered on wide porches, and music floated gently from pianos behind tall windows. Let me know, where are you watching from tonight? Which country? What time is it for you? Is it morning, or are you listening late at night? Now, let's begin our journey. Slowly, gently, with soft sounds of fire crackling low in the hearth, and the faintest hint of piano drifting from a distant room. Tonight, you are no longer in the present. You're in the Gilded Age, and the world is quiet, golden, and waiting. Soft wind outside, faint train whistle in the far distance, gentle piano drifting from an open window. Hey there, welcome back. Tonight, we take our first quiet step into the Gilded Age. The words Gilded Age might sound a bit fancy, a little shiny on the surface, but the truth is deeper and softer. 2. This was a time in American history that stretched from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. Some say it started right after the Civil War, around 1870, and continued on into the early 1900s, maybe 1900, maybe 1910 maybe, even just before World War I. But for now, we're not here for dates or sharp facts. We're here to feel what it was like, slowly, gently. So close your eyes, or simply let your mind wander, as we walk into this time together. The Gilded Age. Gilded, not golden. That word means something coated in gold, not made of it. The outside looks rich, bright, perfect, but under that shine, things were different. There was struggle, there was change, and there was beauty too. Let's start at a street corner in an old American city. It's early morning. The air smells a little smoky, a little earthy. Maybe this is New York, or maybe Chicago, or maybe a small city you've never heard of. You're standing near the edge of a cobbled road. A few street lamps still burn, though the sun is rising. The iron posts are cold and dark, with flickering gas flames inside glass. You hear footsteps on wooden walkways. A woman passes in a long skirt, the hem brushing the planks. She carries a basket covered with a cloth. A delivery boy calls out as he tosses a folded newspaper onto a front step. The sound of hooves clip-clops steadily in the background. A horse pulls a delivery wagon past a bakery where the smell of warm bread floats into the street. The buildings around you are tall and close together. Most are made of brick, red and brown. Some have shops on the ground floor, a butcher, a dressmaker, a small grocery. Upstairs, families live in tiny rooms, some with lace curtains, others with broken shutters. But something is changing. Just down the street, something new is rising. A grand hotel made of stone and steel. Its front doors are tall and shiny. A doorman stands ready in a long coat and top hat. A fountain gently spills water in the courtyard. There's a bellman polishing brass handles, whistling softly. Inside, you hear faint piano music, the kind that drifts up from a lobby where guests sip coffee or read their morning letters. Marble floors shine under gaslight chandeliers. Men in vests speak in low tones, and women in silk dresses walk slowly across the lobby, their shoes clicking lightly. Back outside, the old dirt and noise are still there, but the Gilded Age is creeping in. One block at a time. Let's walk a little farther, shall we? We turn down another street, this one quieter. We pass tall brownstone homes, built with care and money. Wrought iron gates line the sidewalk. Behind them, small trees bloom in tidy gardens. A gardener in a vest gently sweeps fallen petals into a pile. A cat watches you from a windowsill. The window is open just a little, and behind it, lace curtains flutter softly in the morning breeze. The home is still quiet inside. A maid walks silently down a hallway, lighting the lamps and opening the shutters. Her footsteps are soft on the wooden floor. In the kitchen, a cook stirs oatmeal in a large pot, the spoon clinking gently. Against the side, the smell of cinnamon and toast fills the air. Upstairs, a young girl sits at her dressing table, brushing her hair in long, slow strokes. Her dress for the day is already laid out, a soft blue cotton with small white buttons. She watches a bird flutter at the window and hums a tune her mother taught her. Her father is already gone. He left early, in a carriage that rolled away before sunrise. He's a businessman, perhaps, in steel, or railroads, or banking. He wears a hat with a wide brim and carries a folded paper under his arm. His coat is thick wool, even in spring, and his boots are shined each morning by the butler. The mother stays home, but her day is not idle. She checks the menu for lunch, writes 2 letters, one to her sister, one to a charity, and then sits in the morning room with embroidery in her lap and a teacup nearby. This home, like many others during the Gilded Age, is ruled by quiet routines. The day moves slowly but with purpose. There is a certain stillness in it, a certain gentleness. Not far from here, though, life is very different. We cross a bridge to another part of the city. Here, the streets are louder. Crowds move quickly. Children run through alleyways. Men shout over crates of apples and onions at the open market. Laundry hangs between buildings on long lines, fluttering like soft flags in the wind. A woman carries a baby on her hip while holding the hand of a small boy. She nods to her neighbor as she climbs the stairs to her apartment. It's a small space, maybe 2 rooms, but it's home. She lights a small stove. The wood crackles. Outside, a trolley clatters past, and people line up for the next ride to the factory. Some wear work aprons. Some carry lunch pails. In the Gilded Age, people lived many different lives. Some walked on marble floors. Others swept wooden ones. Some lived in homes with quiet gardens. Others lived 3 families to a room. And yet, the sounds of their days were not so different. The creak of a chair, the rattle of a teacup, the soft scratch of a pen on paper. Let's stop now and just listen for a moment. Do you hear the distant train again? That soft whistle? It carries a dream of going west, of finding something new. The train moves slowly past farmland. It rolls through small towns and empty fields. A farmer waves from a wagon. A little girl stands at the fence and watches the train pass. Her hair blows in the breeze. As the train fades, so do the sounds, until we are quiet again. The Gilded Age was not just about money. It was about invention, change, the slow turning of time, new ideas, new lights, new hopes. But it was also about everyday moments. A letter slipped into an envelope, a loaf of bread cooling on a windowsill, a silk glove resting on a parlor chair, a boy watching the stars from a rooftop. The Gilded Age moved like a soft tide, slowly changing everything it touched. And now, as we come to the end of this first part of our walk, let's pause again. We'll stand quietly on this street, where the past feels close, and the morning sun is just beginning to warm the bricks. The light glows golden across the rooftops, and the world, for a moment, is still. Let's take a breath together, in and out, and when you're ready, we'll continue on. Soft wind brushes through tree branches, a distant bell chimes noon. Let's continue our walk through the Gilded Age. The sun is now higher in the sky. Shadows are shorter. The city begins to hum with more sound. Gentle, steady, not too loud. You're still walking, slowly now, past people doing their daily work. A man with rolled sleeves and a small cart sells roasted peanuts. The smell is warm and sweet, carried by the breeze. He calls out quietly to folks passing by, not shouting, just enough to catch the attention of someone nearby. A group of boys, no older than 12, are selling papers on the corner. Their caps are crooked. Their hands are ink-stained from the press. One boy shouts the day's headline, but his voice fades into the street noise as we walk past. Further on, we find a quiet little shop. Its front window is clean, with a lace curtain hanging neatly in the corner. Inside, a tailor sits at his table, sewing by hand. His scissors glint in the sunlight. The floorboards creak softly under his stool. He hums as he works, a low, steady tune, one he's probably sung 100 times before. He looks up and smiles politely as we pass, nodding before returning to his stitching. Now we step off the busy street, walking into a city park. The noise fades. Here, everything slows down again. You hear birds, the crunch of gravel beneath shoes. A gentle breeze ripples the surface of a small pond. Ducks drift lazily near the edge, unbothered by the world. On a nearby bench, a couple sits side by side, not speaking, just being. The woman holds a parasol, shading herself from the sun. The man taps a closed umbrella gently against his boot, not in a rush to go anywhere. Children play quietly in the grass. A nanny watches from a distance, sitting on a blanket with a book in her lap. She looks up now and then, but the children are safe here. Everything feels calm, peaceful. We stroll past a flower bed, red tulips, purple lilacs, and small yellow daisies. Someone's been tending to them. With care. The soil is still soft, the edges of the bed carefully shaped. Farther into the park, you see a gardener in suspenders, trimming a low hedge. His clippers make a quiet snipping sound, steady and soft. And now, we leave the park. We cross a quiet lane and enter another part of the city. This one is quieter still. Here, the houses grow larger, each with wide porches and tall windows. Many are painted white or pale yellow, with dark green shutters. The lawns are trimmed. Trees line the sidewalks. Everything feels neat. We pause in front of one of the biggest homes. The gate creaks slightly as it opens. The gravel path leads us slowly toward the front door. Before we go inside, just listen. You hear a bird chirping from a tree, the soft whir of a ceiling fan behind a curtain. Then the front door opens. And now we step into the heart of Gilded Age wealth. The entry hall is cool and quiet. A soft rug muffles footsteps. A chandelier glows gently overhead, not too bright. It's made of crystal and gaslight. To the left is the parlor. Tall back chairs. A low table with fresh flowers in a vase. A piano in the corner, closed for now. On the mantel, a clock ticks softly, the sound echoing gently through the high ceiling. The walls are lined with wallpaper, pale blue, with a faint floral pattern. A few gold-framed paintings hang evenly, spaced. Everything feels arranged, but not stiff. There's comfort here, even in formality. In another room, a dining table is being set. A maid lays out silverware, fork, knife, spoon, carefully spaced. Plates are white with small blue flowers around the rim. A folded napkin, a small crystal glass. Nothing is rushed, nothing loud. The house carries a hush, like everyone is just out of sight, but still nearby. Upstairs, a study holds a wide desk and tall shelves of books. A chair sits near the window, where a man once read. The evening paper by lamplight. Perhaps he's there now, glasses low on his nose, reading softly to himself. Behind the home, out a glass-paned door, lies the garden. Let's go there now. You step outside onto a stone path. The air smells like roses and newly cut grass. A soft fountain bubbles in the center, water falling in small circles. Bees move slowly among the blooms. A gardener kneels quietly near a row of marigolds. She doesn't speak. Her hands are covered in earth. She's careful and calm, clipping only what's needed. You sit on a wooden bench beneath a willow tree. Its branches sway gently above, offering shade and stillness. From here, the city feels far away. The noise, the dust, the train whistles, they fade. You're in a small, quiet piece of time. This was part of the Gilded Age too, the calm in between progress and change. But not everyone had a garden like this. Let's rise slowly and walk again. Down the hill, past the edge of town, we find the train station. A long platform stretches out, wooden and gray. Suitcases sit in neat piles. Porters carry them carefully. The next train is waiting, its engine hissing quietly. Passengers move slowly up the steps. A woman waves goodbye from the platform, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Her husband tips his hat from the window before disappearing into the car. The station master rings a bell, once, twice. The train pulls away. You stand and watch it grow smaller and smaller until it vanishes into the trees. This was how people traveled during the Gilded Age. From New York to Boston, from Chicago to St. Louis, from little farm towns to great cities. Steel rails stretched across the country like silver lines. The train didn't just carry people, it carried ideas. Books, letters, news, even whispers of fashion and art from Europe. And soon, everything began to move faster. Telephones were new. Electric lights flickered in stores and homes. The smell of coal and steam filled the skies. Factories grew. So did fortunes. But people still found time to sit quietly by the fire, to write long letters in careful script, to listen to music from a gramophone, the soft crackle of the record spinning slow and steady. And so, the Gilded Age was many things. It was movement, it was quiet, it was change, and it was stillness. Now, as we bring this first chapter to a gentle close, take one last moment with me. Imagine you're back in that park again. The sun is setting now, casting long golden rays across the path. A boy tosses a ball to his dog. An older woman sits on a bench, knitting, the yarn slowly winding around her fingers. Far off, a lamplighter walks down the path with a long pole, turning on the gas lamps one by one. Click, click. Each lamp glows with a soft flame. The sky darkens slowly, and the world becomes quiet once more. This is the Gilded Age, a time of soft footsteps and big changes, of shining windows and back alley stories, of silken gloves and worn work boots, of slow trains and fast dreams. Now rest, traveler, and let this moment stay with you as we move gently on to the next chapter. Soft fire crackling, curtains swaying in a warm night breeze, and time slipping gently forward. The tall iron gates creak softly as they swing open. On the other side, a long gravel drive stretches ahead, lined with trimmed hedges and weeping willows that sway gently in the morning breeze. A few leaves tumble across the path, and the sound of carriage wheels far off blends with the soft trill of robins in the trees. At the end of the drive, the mansion rises like a storybook palace, white stone glowing in the gentle sunlight, columns reaching high into the sky, and wide steps leading to a pair of towering wooden doors. Tonight, we're not rushing. We're stepping quietly into one of the grand homes of America's Gilded Age, and we'll move slowly, room by room. The doors open without a sound. The hinges are oiled often. You're greeted not by loud voices or hurried footsteps, but by the hush that settles in grand homes like this, a calm that lives in the high ceilings, the polished marble, and the wide echoing spaces. The entry hall is a world of soft light and cool air. A chandelier, made of dozens of hand-cut crystals, catches the sunlight from the tall arched windows, scattering rainbows onto the checkered floor below. A distant clock ticks once, twice, then fades into the hush again. To the left, the parlor waits. The carpet is thick and patterned in gold and pale green. Velvet chairs with carved wooden legs are placed carefully in a circle near the fire, though the hearth is dark this morning. A lace cloth drapes across a side table, and on top rests a book of poems, its cover cracked with age but still cared for. This is where the lady of the house might entertain her closest friends, offering tea in fine china cups, pouring slowly from a silver pot that never tarnishes. The curtains are drawn back just enough to let in light, but they soften it, too. Everything here feels wrapped in gentleness. Down the hall, a narrow runner carpet quiets your steps. The walls are lined with paintings, portraits of ancestors, long past, landscapes from Europe, still lives with grapes and wine bottles arranged just so. Each frame is heavy, carved, and golden. On the wall nearby, you notice a thin cord. It's a servant bell, ready to be pulled at a moment's need. But no one pulls it now. The house is calm. Next, you come to the drawing room. It's a larger space, filled with more color and more light. Here, sunlight spills across the piano by the window, where someone may have played a slow tune just an hour ago. The keys are still, warm to the touch. A faint melody seems to linger in the air, something soft, something gentle, like a lullaby made of fading light and distant memories. A pair of ladies' gloves lies beside a folded fan on the settee, as though someone stepped out and meant to return in a moment. The scent of lavender floats gently from a bowl of dried flowers on the mantel. The quiet shuffle of footsteps echoes down the corridor. A housemaid in a dark uniform passes by, her eyes low, her pace measured. She carries a silver tray with a glass pitcher and 2 cups, her motion so smooth it seems rehearsed. She disappears into the dining room just ahead, another world of soft elegance. The long table is polished to a shine, and on its surface, a lace runner stretches from end to end. The chairs, each with carved backs and dark red cushions, are pushed in neatly, except for one at the far end, turned slightly as if someone once rose from it slowly. Above hangs another chandelier, this one shaped like a blooming flower, with glowing bulbs nestled inside its petals. Light hums quietly here, not from noise, but from warmth, from memory. Beyond the dining room is the library. You push open the tall wooden door, and the scent of old paper greets you. Immediately, rich and earthy, like 100 stories stacked one atop the other. The room is wrapped in dark wood, floor to ceiling. Shelves stretch up to the ceiling beams, and small brass ladders stand ready to help reach the higher volumes. The fire in the grate is low, crackling gently, giving the room a golden warmth. A thick armchair sits nearby, with a folded newspaper on its arm and a pair of reading glasses resting on the seat. On the side table sits a glass paperweight, shaped like a globe, the contents frozen inside. You take a breath. The silence here is deep, but not heavy. It's the kind of silence that invites you to stay, to read, to think. A butler walks past the door just then. His coat is perfectly pressed, and he nods once, politely. His shoes barely make a sound on the rug. You hear him say nothing, just the swish of his coat and the sound of polished wood brushing against his gloves as he disappears into a side hallway. Back in the corridor, you pass by a long mirror. The frame is gilded, curling with vines and flowers, and the glass itself carries a soft shimmer. It's old, perhaps imported from France, and it reflects not just your image but the light of the chandeliers behind you. A hallway clock chimes the quarter hour, its song low and comforting. Far above you, on the upper floors, you hear the gentle hum of a waltz being played softly, perhaps from a music box or an old gramophone. The notes rise and fall like a memory drifting down from a dream. Now you step into the ballroom. The doors open wide with just the faintest creak. The room is enormous, it's wooden, floors polished to a mirror sheen. Tall windows line the far wall, and curtains as long as sails hang from ceiling to floor. The ceiling itself is painted with clouds and birds, and at its center, a chandelier bigger than any you've seen so far glows like a small sun. On one side of the room stands a grand piano, its lid propped open, a single note waiting to be played. The room is empty now, but you can almost hear the soft swish of gowns on the floor, the clink of glasses, the quiet laughter behind a fan. It's like the echoes of old dances live here still, wrapped in dust and light. Leaving the ballroom behind, you pass through a side hallway where the servants move quietly in and out of view. One straightens a tablecloth, another checks the silver. There is no rush, no noise, just calm, careful motion. They have done this 1,000 times. In the kitchen, the scent of fresh bread fills the air. Copper pots hang above the stove, and the cook hums softly as she kneads dough on a wide wooden table. The kitchen is warm, alive with small sounds, the scrape of a spoon, the hiss of steam, the pop of rising dough. You watch for a moment, unnoticed, then slip back into the hall. Upstairs, the private quarters are quieter still. A lady's bedroom, with lace curtains and pale wallpaper, holds a small writing desk by the window. A letter lies open there, ink still fresh. Next to it, a small vase with one pink rose. A dressing gown is folded neatly across the bed, and slippers wait beside the rug. In the corner, a tall wardrobe with brass handles stands closed, holding secrets of silks and perfumes. You hear the rustle of a skirt in the next room. Then nothing, just the ticking of the clock on the mantel. In the gentleman's room, dark wood and navy blue colors make the space feel cooler, heavier. A globe rests on a stand near the fireplace, and on the desk are ledgers and pens, a gold pocket watch, and a folded newspaper. There's a walking stick propped near the door and a jacket laid over the back of a chair. On the nightstand is a photograph in a silver frame, an image of a younger couple, perhaps taken when the house was newer, when the halls had only just learned to echo. Outside the window, you see the garden stretching toward the horizon. Gravel paths wind between hedges trimmed in perfect curves. A fountain burbles in the center, and flower beds bloom with roses, hydrangeas, and lilies. A gardener moves slowly along the path, clipping and tending. The trees whisper in the breeze, and a bird lands gently on the edge of a marble bench before fluttering away. But we'll return to the gardens soon. For now, this walk through the mansion has only just begun. Every room holds a story. Every hallway carries a breath of the past. And tonight, we're walking through it softly, slowly listening to the quiet. The sound of a soft breeze filters in through a half-open window. It stirs the sheer white curtains of the upper guest room, brushing them like quiet waves across the polished wooden floor. This room is smaller than the others, but still delicate in its decoration. pale yellow wallpaper patterned with faded vines, and a four-post bed topped with a handmade quilt stitched in blues and creams. A small leather-bound book rests on the nightstand. The guest might have left it there this morning after reading just a few pages while the sun rose. The hush is only broken by a distant sound of footsteps echoing faintly from a floor below. Somewhere, a member of the staff is turning down beds, drawing curtains closed to block the heat of the day. In a home like this, even the shadows are tended to with care. Down a quiet back staircase, worn soft by years of careful steps, is a hallway less decorative, more purposeful. It leads to the servants' quarters, tucked away, hidden from the main view, but filled with their own kind of gentle rhythm. A maid brushes out linens in a small laundry room, humming a tune softly under her breath. The water in the basin ripples as she rinses a collar, wrings it out slowly, and hangs it with care on a line stretched beside the window. A breeze comes through here too, cool and light, carrying the clean scent of soap and cotton. Across the hall is the butler's pantry. It's not large, but it gleams with order. Rows of polished silver gleam from lined shelves, each fork, knife, and spoon counted and returned to its place. Tea services, decanters, and platters await the next call, though none of them are hurried. The butler's office nearby is quiet. On the desk, his logbook lies open, with fine, even handwriting noting the day's deliveries, which guests are expected, and what flowers were placed in the drawing room. Everything here is written down, each moment in the mansion captured quietly in neat, looping script. Past a door you may not have noticed before, hidden flush with the wall, is a narrow stair that curves down toward the wine cellar. Cool air greets you as you descend, and the scent of earth and oak deepens. Along each wall, wooden racks hold dozens of dark glass bottles. Each one has a tiny handwritten label, some so old the ink has faded. The cellar holds more than just wine. It holds time, memory, and quiet tradition. The stone walls stay cool in summer and winter alike, and the silence here is absolute. It's a different kind of stillness, thick and grounding. Back upstairs, it's late afternoon now. The light has begun to change. Through the tall hallway windows, golden sun filters in, laying long, dappled beams across the floors and walls. The scent of polished wood and flowers still lingers, faintly, and everything feels slower, more hushed. In the drawing room again, the lace on the chairs picks up the amber light, turning their delicate patterns to soft gold. A servant enters briefly, placing a small arrangement of lilies on the mantel. She adjusts the vase just slightly, checking its balance, and then slips out again with no more sound. Then the rustle of her skirt. In the ladies' sitting room upstairs, there's a moment of still life. The window is wide open, and the breeze lifts the corners of a silk ribbon laid gently on a vanity table. The vanity is arranged with hairpins, a small silver brush, and perfume bottles made of crystal and tinted glass. One bottle has been uncorked. The scent is something floral, delicate, like jasmine or rose. A journal lies beside it, open to a page written just this morning. The handwriting is soft and looping, the ink barely dry. Outside the window, you hear birds chirping softly and the faint clang of a gardener's trowel tapping against stone. Further down the hall is the nursery. It's quiet now. The rocking horse sits still in the corner, and picture books are lined neatly on a shelf below the windowsill. The air smells faintly of lavender and starch. The curtains are pale blue, matching the hand-sewn coverlet folded at the foot of the small bed. A tiny wooden chair rests beside a worn rug, its legs uneven with age. This room holds memories of lullabies and whispered goodnights, of laughter in the morning, and soft footsteps in the dark. Even when empty, the feeling lingers like a ghost made of comfort. You move slowly now, back downstairs. The air feels heavier as the day begins to close. In the grand hall, the chandeliers glow a little warmer now, their flickering bulbs casting soft shadows on the high walls. The sound of footsteps echoes again. This time, it's the gentleman of the house, descending the main staircase with a book under his arm. He nods politely as he passes, offering no words, just presence. He disappears into the library once more, where the fire is now glowing stronger, curling orange light across the spines of old books. The parlor is being prepared for evening. A maid lights candles carefully, one by one, with a long taper stick. The flame dances gently with each motion, casting soft flickers on the wallpaper. The curtains are drawn, but not completely, just enough for privacy, while letting in a glimpse of the garden outside. The garden glows with the low sun, the fountain catching its last rays like glass on water. You hear the soft splash of the trickle and the creak of the wrought iron gate as the gardener makes his way out, tools in hand, head bowed. Dinner won't be for another hour, but the dining room already feels expectant. The long table is being set. Now quietly, thoroughly. Fine china is placed with practiced hands. Silver gleams beside linen napkins folded into delicate shapes. A low arrangement of white flowers is centered perfectly. A footman checks the spacing between glasses, the straightness of each knife. There is no rush. Every motion is smooth, silent, respectful. You pause in the hallway outside, near the staircase again. The house breathes around you, slow and rhythmic, like a giant creature in rest. The ticking of the grandfather clock, the soft creaks of wooden floorboards, the gentle whisper of air through old curtains, it all flows together. The house, though quiet, never truly stops. It's a living thing. As twilight approaches, the ballroom begins to feel like it might come alive again. Lamps are lit along the walls, and the golden glow returns. It doesn't take much to imagine the space filled with music, strings, a piano, maybe a soft clarinet. Ghosts of old parties seem to stir in the corners, laughter behind fans, quiet conversation beneath chandeliers. But tonight, it remains empty, just holding its breath. Later in the evening, the family may retreat to the music room, tucked near the back of the home. It's small and warm, with tall windows and dark green walls. A harp stands by the wall, and a violin rests in its case. The grand piano waits in the center, keys brushed clean and polished. Perhaps a daughter of the house plays a soft tune after dinner, slow and thoughtful. You can almost hear it, the notes drifting down the hall, gentle as starlight. Somewhere in the pantry, a pot of tea is prepared. Not hurried, just steeped to perfection, poured quietly into porcelain cups with blue rims. Upstairs, slippers are slipped onto waiting feet. Brushes move slowly through long hair. And curtains are drawn fully now against the night. Fireplaces glow a little brighter, throwing dancing shapes onto the walls and ceilings. The staff begins to retreat to their own quiet quarters, their day's work done in peace. As darkness settles, the outside world disappears behind thick walls and tall windows. The garden grows still. Even the birds have gone quiet. A clock chimes 9 times in the hallway. The house responds not with noise, but with stillness. Lamps are turned low. Books are closed. Slippers placed neatly by bedsides. A final hush falls over every room. You take one last look around. The grand hall, empty and glowing. The drawing room, lit only by candles. The echoing staircase, rising into shadow. The golden mansion has slowed completely, breathing in sleep and softness. It does not rush. It does not demand. It only waits, quietly, for morning. And as you step softly back toward the doors, the world outside awaits. Cool night air, a faint wind in the hedges, the long gravel path back to the gates. Behind you, the mansion stands still, wrapped in quiet like a blanket, full of light and memory, resting deeply in the heart of the Gilded Age. The morning arrives slowly. The golden sunlight doesn't burst through the windows. It filters in, gently, quietly. It first touches the tops of the lace curtains, warming the delicate patterns stitched by hands so many years ago. Then it moves across the pale wallpaper, crawling softly over framed paintings of flowers and seascapes, casting faint, lace-like shadows onto the floorboards. A gentle breeze stirs, rustling the corner of the curtain just slightly. The scent it carries is fresh, like dew, roses, and trimmed grass from the gardens below. Outside, birds begin to chirp in slow, staggered rhythm. No bells, no alarms. Just the soft morning sounds of the world beyond the window. Under a canopy of white gauze, a figure stirs. The lady of the house, wrapped in a cotton nightgown, shifts beneath a thick quilt, blinking slowly against the growing light. The silence is complete, save for the ticking of a nearby mantle clock. Its hands have just passed 7. A soft knock comes at the door. Not loud, just a small, rhythmic tap. Then the door creaks open, and in steps a maid, her shoes nearly silent against the rug. She carries a silver tray with 2 things, a small porcelain teacup and a matching saucer, steam rising gently from the tea within. Alongside it, a single white envelope. The morning note. The tray is placed quietly on the small table beside the bed. The maid draws back the drapes in a slow, even motion, letting in the day. No words are needed. The lady sits up slowly, her long hair falling across her shoulders, and reaches for the tea. It's warm in her hands. She sips slowly, eyes gazing out toward the trees beyond the window. The bird song, the sunlight, the quiet clink of the cup against the saucer. It's all part of the rhythm. This is how her day begins. Soon, another maid arrives with a pitcher of warm water. She pours it carefully into the wash basin, the sound soft and smooth, like rain in a tin roof. A cloth is folded and placed beside it. The lady freshens her face, dabbing gently, moving slowly. There is no rush. Each motion is measured, done with grace. A soft rustle comes from the wardrobe next. Today's garments are chosen by her maid, a pale blue day dress, trimmed in white lace, with matching gloves and a sash tied at the waist. Beneath it all, layers of petticoats and a tightly laced corset wait. Dressing is not a quick task. It's a process, a quiet ritual. The maid begins by helping her into a chemise, then the corset, pulling the ribbons gently but firmly. Each tug of the lace makes a soft brushing sound, and the lady exhales slowly, used to the feeling by now. Over the corset go the petticoats, then the outer dress. It slips over her head like water. The sleeves are adjusted, the sash tied in a bow. Finally, the gloves are slipped on, one finger at a time, and her hair is brushed until it shines, then pinned up with soft, practiced hands. Not a word is spoken, but everything is understood. Now dressed, the lady walks down the hall, her steps soft against the carpet runner. The long train of her gown sways lightly with each step. In the breakfast room, sunlight streams through tall windows. A simple morning meal is laid out: buttered toast, fruit, a soft-boiled egg, and more tea. She eats slowly, alone, with a folded newspaper. Nearby, though she only glances at the headlines. The world beyond these walls is filled with movement, railroads, factories, political change, but here, inside the mansion, the pace stays gentle. Outside the window, the gardener moves across the lawn with a wheelbarrow, carefully tending the rose beds. The birds are louder now. A bee drifts lazily past the open window. After breakfast, she retreats to the morning room. The walls are light green, trimmed in white, and the furniture is soft and inviting. Here, she sits on a high-back chair with her embroidery hoop in hand. Today, she's working on a set of napkins for the dining room. Her needle moves slowly through the fabric, thread pulling tight with a faint whisper. A small clock ticks on the side table. The sound of the thread sliding through the linen is constant, soft, soothing, methodical. From time to time, she pauses to sip her tea or gaze out the window. The garden is beginning to bloom now. Yellow roses, bluebells, and lavender stretch along the paths. She'll walk there later, but not yet. For now, the quiet is enough. At around 11, a small stack of letters is brought to her on a silver tray. Most are invitations or updates. A garden party next week, a thank you note from a guest, a short letter from her sister in New York. She reads each, slowly, smiling at some, frowning gently at others, and sets them aside in a neat pile. Her own letter writing comes next. From the small writing desk by the window, she selects a fresh piece of cream paper and uncaps a bottle of ink. The pen glides softly, her handwriting looping and careful. She writes slowly, thoughtfully, a letter to a friend she hasn't seen in months. As she finishes each sentence, she pauses to let the ink dry. The words are not rushed. Everything takes its time here. Once her letters are done and sealed with wax, she rises and steps into the hallway again. This time with her parasol in hand, she heads outside. The front doors open with a low creak, and she steps out onto the stone porch. The air is warm, but not too hot. The breeze is light, fluttering the ribbons of her hat. Down the front steps, across the gravel drive, and into the garden. This is her favorite part of the day. The parasol casts soft shade across her face. Her shoes crunch lightly on the path. Each step is unhurried. The world out here is full of color. The pale blue sky, the vivid green hedges, the bright petals of blooming flowers. Bees buzz softly from bloom to bloom. A bird chirps from the hedge. She walks along the garden path, trailing her fingers along the top of the trimmed hedge. A butterfly passes, and she stops to watch it flutter up into the air, then disappear behind a tree. The fountain in the center of the garden is gently spilling over, its water glimmering in the sunlight. She sits on the edge of the stone bench nearby and simply listens to the water, the breeze, the soft rustle of the leaves. There is no rush to return. The day stretches out before her like a long ribbon, slow and open. She remains there for a while, enjoying the warmth, the quiet, the sense that nothing urgent waits inside. Just stillness, just softness. When she finally does return, it is just before the noon hour. The light has shifted again, pouring in at a steeper angle. The scent of the garden clings to her gloves, roses, grass, and something sweet she can't quite name. Inside the house, the staff move with the same calm energy. No one is rushed, no voices raised, just the sound of motion, chairs being moved, a tray being polished, a soft footstep crossing marble. She steps back into the morning room, removing her gloves and placing them on the table beside her. Her hands are warm from the walk, and her face glows gently from the sun. She pours herself a final cup of tea and sits again in her favorite chair, the cushions sinking softly beneath her. Outside the window, the gardener passes once more, wheeling trimmed clippings away down the side path. The breeze lifts again, brushing through the open windows and tugging gently at the lace curtain. It dances like mist, pale and silent. And so, the morning draws to a close, not with noise or activity, but with quiet routine, with soft fabrics, slow steps, and still moments. For a lady in the Gilded Age, life moves like this, not fast but full of small duties, careful rituals, and a kind of calm that settles deep in the air like dust and sunlight. The afternoon will bring its own rhythm, visits, letters, perhaps some music, but for now, the house, the garden, and the lady herself remain in a kind of delicate pause. The noon hour arrives, not with any loud announcement, but with a gentle shifting of light and rhythm. In the large dining room, which smells faintly of lemon oil and polished wood, the lady sits once more, this time at a long, gleaming table dressed in lace and silver. Lunch is not a grand affair, not on an ordinary day like this. But still, everything is arranged carefully. Cold chicken slices, soft bread rolls, a bit of cucumber salad, and a delicate fruit compote served in a shallow crystal dish. Across the table, a small place has been set for her younger cousin, visiting for the season. The two speak softly, their voices light, barely more than whispers across the linen. They talk about letters received, a new dress being tailored, the promise of a concert later in the week. Between the sentences, there are pauses, long, comfortable silences that settle between bites and sips of tea. The dining room windows are tall, stretching almost from floor to ceiling, and outside the world is still bright. The trees rustle quietly. The carriage driver waits by the stable with his arms crossed, the horses flicking their tails. Olive. It goes on quietly in the background, like a soft painting behind glass. After the meal, the lady walks slowly up the main staircase. Her hand slides gently along the polished banister as she ascends, one quiet step after another. The hallway above is wide and softly lit. The carpet muffles her footsteps completely. She enters the sitting room at the far end, her private corner, where a small writing desk and shelves of novels line the walls. She chooses a book, something light, something romantic. She settles into a high-backed chair near the window, where the sunlight filters in just right. She doesn't rush through the pages. She reads slowly, carefully, letting each word hang in the air for a second before continuing. Sometimes, her eyes lift from the text, watching a leaf tumble outside, or following the movement of a shadow on the floor. The house is still. Only the faint ticking of a clock and the soft turning of pages mark the passage of time. Around mid-afternoon, there's a light knock at the door. A maid enters with a small tray, a fresh pot of tea, a plate, with 2 shortbread biscuits, and a note. There's a soft thank you exchanged, nearly a whisper. The maid curtsies slightly and disappears just as quietly. The lady opens the note. It's from a neighbor, an invitation for a brief walk in the conservatory garden before dusk. She smiles and sets the note aside. There's plenty of time yet. Outside the window, the world is still full of light. The book rests on her lap, the tea steams gently, and the air carries the faintest scent of rose water. Later in the day, the piano room calls to her. She doesn't play every afternoon, but today, something about the quiet hum of the house makes her want to. She walks slowly down the corridor, past portraits of ancestors and still life, paintings in gilded frames. Her gloved hand slides along the wooden paneling as she moves, the only sound being the soft creak of the old boards beneath her steps. The piano room is sunlit and still. A large grand piano sits in the corner, polished to a deep, black sheen. She sits, carefully adjusts her gloves, and places her fingers gently on the keys. The first notes come slowly, soft, slow. Chords. She plays an old waltz, something her mother once taught her. The sound is faint, almost shy, like a secret, being whispered into the air. Her fingers move with ease, but without urgency. There are pauses, deep breaths, glances toward the sun-drenched curtains. The melody winds through the room, light as air, before fading into silence. She lets the final note hang, then slowly lifts her hands from the keys. The silence that follows is just as beautiful. From here, she steps out once more into the open garden, this time with a bonnet tied softly beneath her chin. She meets her neighbor at the edge of the conservatory path. The two greet each other with gentle smiles, no need for much talk. They walk slowly side by side, the gravel crunching beneath their feet. Around them, the world feels unchanged. The birds still sing, the fountain still murmurs, and the breeze still carries the same soft scent of jasmine and warm earth. They speak in murmurs about books they've read, the scent of new blossoms, and memories of seasons past. When they part, it's with a soft hand squeeze and a promise to write. Evening nears now. The golden light is deeper, casting long shadows across the garden and reaching into the house through half-closed curtains. Inside, lamps are being lit one by one. The house glows slowly to life again, not with noise, but with warm flickers of light. The lady returns to her room. Her maid is waiting, standing by the dressing table, where her evening dress has already been laid out. It's a soft mauve silk with lace trim, the color of twilight. Her hair is brushed once more, pinned higher now, with a small ribbon added at the back. A necklace is fastened, one clasp at a time. She doesn't speak, and neither does the maid. The quiet is shared, understood. As she prepares for the small evening gathering, just family, and perhaps 1 or 2 visitors, she sits briefly at her mirror, watching her reflection in the warm lamp glow. She's not looking for flaws. She's not trying to impress. She's simply pausing, breathing. The mirror shows the same calm face that moved through the day with ease. Downstairs, the drawing room is gently alive with voices. Nothing loud, just soft conversation, a bit of quiet laughter, the clinking of glasses. Someone has opened the music cabinet, and a gramophone hums a soft tune in the corner. She enters slowly, her shoes making no sound on the polished wood floor. She greets each guest with a soft voice, a smile, and a light touch on the hand. They talk of flowers, of letters, of the weather, nothing weighty, just things that feel nice to say. The windows are cracked open slightly, letting in the cooler evening air. The room smells of rosewood and faint perfume. A dog lies curled in the corner, resting, one ear flicking lazily now and then. Someone suggests a parlor game, and the group settles in. It's not loud or lively, just cards or guessing games. Something slow and sweet. The lady takes part, her laughter soft, her attention gentle. These are the hours that ask nothing of her, no tasks, no rules, just company and calm. As the evening fades, guests begin to leave with quiet farewells. The lamps are dimmed, the dog stretches and trots quietly after his mistress. The gramophone winds down. The room returns to silence, like water settling after a ripple. She climbs the stairs again, slower now. Her maid is waiting with a robe and slippers. The evening dress is unbuttoned and removed with care, the corset untied, the pins from her hair gently eased out, each layer placed neatly aside, each motion soft and practiced. In her night dress once again, she steps into her bedroom, where the bed is turned down and the curtains drawn. A candle flickers on the bedside table, and the covers are warm. She climbs in slowly, feeling the softness of the quilt against her skin. Outside the window, the moon has risen. The trees sway faintly. Somewhere, a night bird calls out once, then falls. Quiet. She reaches for her journal, writes a few lines about the garden, the tea, the music. Nothing more. Then she places the book aside, blows out the candle, and settles in. The room is silent again. The only sound is the soft breathing of someone at rest. And so ends another day in the life of a gilded lady. A day filled with slow steps, gentle voices, soft fabrics, and deeper silences. A world where beauty moved slowly, and every moment was wrapped in quiet care. It begins with the sound of a match striking, a soft scrape, then a gentle flare of light. The morning starts early in the world of a Gilded Age gentleman, but not with noise, never noise. Instead, with routine, with stillness. He lights the small lamp on his bedside table, casting a pool of warm yellow light across the neatly folded covers. The sky outside is still pale, barely kissed by morning. He sits up slowly, not rushed. There is time. There is always time. The air is cool, and the room still carries the soft scent of cedarwood and the faint trace of last night's cigar smoke. He rises and stretches, barefoot on the fine wool rug, and crosses the room toward the wash basin. The sound of water being poured echoes softly, a quiet splash. His valet, who has arrived just moments before, stands to the side, already setting out the morning attire. A crisp white shirt, a black waistcoat with a pearl tie pin, a gray woolen suit, brushed and pressed. His shoes, polished to a mirror shine. The gentleman washes his face slowly, dabbing away the night's sleep. He shaves with a straight razor, the motion slow and practiced, the blade whispering faintly across his skin. Each action is done with care, not show. There is a calmness in his ritual, a sense of control. As he dresses, there are no wasted words. The valet helps with buttons, with cufflinks, with the final twist of the tie. A final glance in the tall mirror. A nod. It is enough. Downstairs, in a quiet corner of the house, breakfast waits. A silver dome is lifted to reveal a soft-boiled egg, toast, and thick slices of ham. A steaming cup of black coffee is placed nearby. The gentleman eats alone, the newspaper folded neatly to one side. He reads without hurrying, his eyes scanning headlines about rail expansion, strikes, and foreign affairs. Outside, his carriage waits, not ostentatious, but elegant. The horses are dark and quiet, their breath curling in the morning air. The driver opens the door with a nod, and the gentleman steps inside, the leather seat creaking softly. Beneath him, as the carriage rolls down the cobbled avenue, the city wakes slowly. Street sweepers brush the sidewalks. A newspaper boy calls out headlines in a voice that echoes and then fades. The gentleman watches from behind the glass, not out of detachment, but with quiet consideration. Every building, every movement is part of a world he knows how to navigate. The carriage turns a corner and stops in front of a tall, stately structure, his club. A place of silence and velvet, of dark wood and dim lamps. The doorman tips his hat. The gentleman steps inside. The club smells faintly of cigars, leather, and old books. A fire burns in the main room, and a few other men sit, reading or speaking in low voices. He removes his gloves, places his walking cane in the stand, and nods to the porter. This is where the day truly begins. He enters the reading room. Shelves line the walls, filled with leather-bound volumes. A globe stands in one corner, gently turning. The windows are tall, veiled in lace. He chooses a seat near the fire, where the morning sunlight hits the floor in slanted beams. Another gentleman nods at him, folding his paper. There's a brief exchange about market fluctuations, about shipping delays, about something heard in a meeting last week. But no chatter. Never chatter. Later, a messenger arrives. Quiet footsteps down the carpeted hall. A sealed note is delivered. The gentleman opens it, reads it slowly, and tucks it into his pocket. He rises, gathers his things, and walks softly through the corridors to the rear exit. Outside, another carriage waits. This one takes him to the offices, a building near the heart of the financial district. Tall and modern, with brass handles and polished marble. Inside, the air smells like ink, ledgers, and ambition. He enters his office. A large oak desk, a window that overlooks the street below, a thick carpet that muffles every sound. His secretary greets him with a quiet, "Good morning, sir." There are no bells, no telephones ringing loudly, just the slow rhythm of pens moving and shoes crossing floors. He sits and reviews reports. Railroad figures, steel costs, construction delays. His eyes move carefully over every word. He signs where needed, folds documents into envelopes, and seals them with wax. This is the pulse of his world, steady, deliberate, silent. Later, a few associates arrive. They sit in armchairs near the fire. One lights a cigar, another pours a glass of brandy. The talk is soft and steady, about funding, about overseas expansion, about the quiet dealings behind the scenes. No raised voices. Only the crackle of the fire, the creak of leather, the soft hum of money moving through the world, like water through pipes. The gentleman listens more than he speaks. When he does speak, it's low, clear, final. Others nod. A decision is made. A handshake follows. The fire pops softly in the grate. By late afternoon, the work is done, for now. He stands, places his pocket watch back into its vest, and picks up his cane. The secretary hands him his coat. Another quiet nod. Another closed door. But the day isn't over. Not yet. He walks now, slowly, through the streets. Past gas lamps and shop windows. Past flower sellers packing up for the evening. Past a boy playing a fiddle on a corner, the notes curling softly into the air. He stops at a tobacconist. The bell above the door tinkles faintly. He selects a new box of cigars, sniffs the edge of one, nods in approval. Coins exchange hands. The transaction is nearly wordless. Outside again, he turns and walks toward another familiar doorway. Not the office, not the club, but a quiet hotel lounge. Here, men of his kind meet at the end of the day. The furniture is deep and comfortable. The air smells of wax and aged bourbon. Someone is playing a slow tune on the upright piano in the corner, and there's a murmur of talk beneath it. He sits, not with friends, but among them, men who share his silence, his world, his rhythm. A glass is placed in his hand, and the conversation begins again. Low, easy, not urgent. They talk about the new bridge being planned, about a possible acquisition, about the mayor's latest misstep. No, one boasts. No one yells. It's all too finely woven for that. These are men who move things without noise. He checks his pocket watch again. The hands glide toward evening. The morning in a Gilded Age mansion didn't begin with golden rays streaming into silk-draped bedrooms. It began with the soft creak of a servant's door, long before the sun had reached the tall windows above. Down in the servants' quarters, tucked beneath the marble and velvet splendor, everything began in hush and shadows. It was still dark. A chill rested in the flagstone hallway, cool and damp from the night. Candles flickered quietly as the first feet touched the cold floor, woolen socks sliding into worn leather shoes. No grand fires were lit here yet. No brocade robes or silk slippers. Just thick aprons, long sleeves, and work-worn hands pulling hair into a tight bun or brushing the dust from trousers before the day began. The maids moved first, rising like shadows through the kitchen halls. The scullery maid, often the youngest, tiptoed into the stillness and stirred the ashes in the large black iron stove. With practiced hands, she fed in thin slats of kindling, nursing the fire gently so the thick logs wouldn't smoke. Soon, the first warmth of flame crept out across the tiled floor, mingling with the faint scent of last night's coals, and would sap crackling to life. The head cook would be next, tying her apron tight as she began her own quiet symphony, knives against boards, flour dust rising, the soft whisk of eggs in a bowl. Everything was done with precision and calm. The family upstairs wouldn't rise for hours, but the servants below were already in motion. One by one, doors opened. Housemaids began climbing back staircases with feather dusters and polishing cloths. The butler's voice, low and level, gave quiet instruction to the younger footmen: polish the brass, check the wine cellar. The drawing room needs a fresh fire before 8. Everything they touched mattered. Every polish of a candlestick, every fold of a napkin, every seam pressed in a uniform was a silent testament to care, service, and invisible pride. The house had to gleam before its owners even stirred. There was no clatter in these halls, no shouting or rushing. The work moved in slow waves, quiet as breath. China cups were placed without a sound. Carpets were swept with soft brushes. Even coal scuttles were carried in gloved hands, the soot brushed carefully away from the polished brass handles so no fingerprints would remain. In the laundry room, steam began to rise gently from the basins. Heavy irons, heated over coals, were tested with a flick of water. Linens had to be pressed. White sheets crisp and smooth, lace curtains flattened without a wrinkle. Down here, in the belly of the house, perfection was born from early light and quiet hands. Past the kitchen, in a long hallway lined with low hooks and oil lanterns, the boots were waiting. Rows and rows of leather shoes stood at attention, polished the night before, laces fresh, soles clean. The valet would soon choose a pair for the master of the house, while the lady's maid would select gloves, hairpins, and perfume for the lady. Upstairs, all arranged with care beside a basin of fresh lavender water. There were no soft couches or velvet chairs in these halls. The servants' common room had a long wooden table, a few mugs, and a pot of tea kept warm on the hearth. When the first hour of labor passed, they might pause for a sip and a shared glance, but even their rest was brief and muted. The bell board was mounted like a watchful eye, rows of small bells connected to rooms above by hidden wires. Each one had a name etched beneath: morning room, blue bedroom, guest suite, library. If a bell rang, the servant assigned to that space would move without pause. Footsteps muffled by soft shoes, movements graceful and silent. Time mattered. Every minute of delay was noted. Back in the kitchen, the cook and her assistants prepared breakfast, not for themselves, but for the family upstairs. Breads baked slowly in the oven, their scent rising through vents in the wall. Bacon sizzled in pans. Eggs were gathered, butter churned. Dishes were laid out on warming trays. Silver was polished until it glinted in the lantern light. And then came the clink of porcelain, the hush of cloth over tray, the slow steps up the service stair. The housemaid, always careful to walk just right, not too fast, not too slow, carried breakfast to the lady's room with both hands. Her apron was clean, her hair pinned tight. The tray bore more than food, it carried dignity. Downstairs, the younger maids continued their rounds, polishing mirrors, shaking out rugs, watering the potted ferns that stood like silent guards in the corridors. Each plant had its day, each chair had its angle. Everything was checked. In the pantry, the footman measured out the wine for the evening meal. The butler oversaw the fine glassware, inspecting every stem, every rim. The scent of beeswax and lavender polish lingered on his gloves. Quiet as a whisper, he locked the decanters back into their cabinet. At the rear of the house, a side door creaked gently open, delivering ice, fresh milk, or parcels wrapped in brown paper. Deliveries came early, when the world outside still slept. The housekeeper logged each item with pencil and ledger, quietly, carefully. Nothing was missed. The seamstress, if there was one in residence, might already be threading her needle by the attic window, mending a hem, adding lace to a sleeve. Stitch by stitch, the fashions of the family passed through her fingers. Throughout the house, the rhythm of the servants moved like a tide, never rushed, never late, just steady. Even the youngest knew their tasks by heart. They'd been trained by repetition and soft correction. A fork placed too far left, a towel folded with the edge showing, a door left ajar when it should be closed. Each mistake, gently corrected. There was pride here, too. Quiet pride. The butler stood straighter when guests were expected. The maid smiled faintly when her brass candlesticks gleamed. The cook, though she rarely showed it, would nod with satisfaction. When the souffle didn't fall, and when the household finally stirred, when the floors above came to life with footsteps, voices, and distant Music, the servants moved into the background. Always present, always unseen. This was their world. Not one of grand rooms and orchestras, but of ticking clocks, warm ovens, folded linens, and careful hands. A world that began before sunrise and ended long after the house had gone still again. And even then, before the candles were blown out and the last door was locked, one more look was made down the hall. One more cloth passed over the silver tray. One more coal pressed into the fire to keep the embers glowing. Just until morning. As the day slowly crept forward, sunlight stretched across the grand staircases above, but below the surface, in the quiet, hidden heart of the mansion, the rhythm of the servants continued without pause. By mid-morning, the pace softened, but the work never stopped. Breakfast had been served and cleared. The delicate clinking of silver cutlery had faded. Upstairs, the household was now dressed, rooms occupied, lives unfolding in fine clothes and polished shoes. But below, the hum of labor remained steady. Down in the scullery, the youngest maid still worked with her sleeves rolled high, standing over a deep porcelain sink. The water was hot, almost too hot, and her hands were pink from scrubbing. Dozens of plates, cups, and utensils from breakfast were lined up along a long wooden board. She moved with small, repetitive motions. Soak, scrub, rinse, place. The water splashed softly. The scent of soap mixed with the faint smell of eggs and tea leaves. Occasionally, she'd glance toward the ceiling, hearing the gentle footfalls of those above, reminders of a world she helped maintain, but rarely entered. In the laundry rooms nearby, linens were being prepared for the upstairs chambers. White sheets were folded tightly into squares, towels rolled with care, and lace curtains, freshly pressed, were hung to dry along a line that stretched between two old iron hooks. A large copper boiler hissed gently. One maid dipped her hand into a basin, testing the warmth, and added a few drops of lavender oil. It would leave just the faintest scent, something soft, something clean, on the linens that would later grace a four-poster bed. The butler, ever calm, walked the servant halls with gloved hands behind his back. His boots, though polished to a mirror shine, made only the faintest thud against the wood. He inspected everything, not out of cruelty, but out of deep duty. He checked the temperature of the wine cellars, ensured the morning post was sorted and set aside for the master of the house, and gave small nods of approval when he passed the footmen practicing their formal tray holds. He stopped briefly at the bellboard. All quiet. None of the small brass bells had rung in the last hour. The wires leading to each room were still. That was good. It meant the house was at ease, for now. In a narrow corridor not far from the kitchens, the housekeeper kept her ledger balanced on her lap. Her spectacles perched low on her nose, and her pen moved steadily, logging what had been used and what was needed. Soap, flour, ink, a new brush for polishing the wood banisters. She didn't speak much, but her presence kept the house running. Every scrap, every towel, every glove and handkerchief passed through her notice at some point. Nearby, a seamstress hummed faintly as she stitched a torn lace cuff. The window in her attic room was small and fogged, but she liked the light that came in through it. With each stitch, she thought about the lady who would wear this cuff, how she'd walk through the ballroom with her hand resting gently on someone's arm, the lace fluttering like a whisper. The seamstress would never see it happen, but she imagined it all the same. Below stairs, the servants' meal was a quiet moment. Not leisurely, but necessary. Around the long wooden table in their common room, they gathered for a few minutes. Bread, simple stews, weak tea. They spoke in low voices, mostly about the day's work, who had fallen behind, who had earned a small compliment from the mistress. Occasionally, a small laugh, quickly hushed. Even here, voices stayed soft. The walls had ears. After eating, they cleared the table as quickly as they had set it. A few crumbs brushed away, the dishes rinsed in the scullery. Then, it was back to work. There was silver to polish, carpets to beat, windows to wipe. One footman stepped outside briefly to sweep the stone path near the servants' entrance. His broom moved slowly, each sweep, pushing away leaves that had gathered during the morning breeze. He worked alone, the quiet outside matching the quiet inside. Throughout the mansion, more bells would begin to ring now, one from the drawing room, one from the blue Bedroom upstairs. The lady required a different shawl. A guest had arrived unexpectedly. A fire needed to be stoked. In the study, each bell summoned a servant, and each time, someone responded within seconds. They walked the servant staircases with smooth, silent steps. Their shoes were made for silence. Their uniforms, though simple, were neat, clean collars, pressed aprons, no frayed cuffs. The girls wore their hair tightly wound. The boys, their jackets buttoned straight. To be seen was rare, but when it happened, they had to be perfect. Inside the mansion's grand library, where the master sometimes met with businessmen or guests, a footman adjusted the curtains just slightly so the sunlight wouldn't fall too harshly across the desk. He moved a stack of books back into a perfect row and smoothed the chair cushion. No one saw him do it, but when the master walked in 5 minutes later, everything was just as it should be. In the servants' quarters, life was simple, but it was not empty. They had stories, too. Some had been in service since childhood. Others were new, learning the rhythms of the house day by day. One girl dreamed of one day becoming a lady's maid. Another boy hoped to save enough to become a shopkeeper. For now, though, they dusted banisters, pressed clothes, trimmed candle wicks. By mid-afternoon, the cook was already preparing for supper. Roasts were turned, potatoes peeled, broth simmered, low and steady on the back of the stove. She directed her assistants with hand gestures and low words. There was a rhythm here, too. She knew how long each course took. Timing was everything. Nothing must be cold when served. Nothing overdone. Outside, the sun was starting to lean low, but inside the house, lamps were being lit. First by the footmen, who used long tapers to reach the crystal sconces. Then candles in the hallways. Then the low oil lamps along the servant halls. Light meant the second half of the day was beginning. In the parlor, a maid replaced the fresh flowers in a tall vase. She arranged them with gentle fingers, her eyes flicking from one bloom to the next. She had learned from watching the lady herself. Balance, height, symmetry. The flowers were not for her, but she felt a soft joy in making them just right. In the dressing room, the lady's maid laid out a new gown. She placed gloves beside it, brushed out the cloak that would be needed if the lady went out for the evening. Everything folded, fluffed, ready. She did it all without sound. The lady might be napping, or thinking, or simply watching. A good maid made herself invisible, even in plain sight. Meanwhile, the valet polished a pair of shoes until they gleamed like glass. He checked the buttons on a fresh waistcoat and pressed a silk cravat with gentle care. His master might wear it for 10 minutes or 10 hours. It didn't matter. It would be perfect. As the afternoon slipped into evening, there was another small meal for the servants. A break in the hush. Bread. Again. Warm tea. Tired shoulders. One girl rubbed her sore palms quietly, hiding the redness. Another leaned against the back wall, eyes closed just for a moment. No laughter now, just a breath. Evening brought guests. That meant coats to be taken, horses to be stabled, more fires to be lit. It meant shining. Silver on the table, folding napkins into careful fans, setting the goblets in perfect lines. The bell board lit up again. The pace increased, but the quiet remained. Footsteps moved faster now, but no one ran. Trays moved from kitchen to parlor, from cellar to dining room. One misstep, one dropped spoon, and the whole illusion above might shudder. So they worked with deep focus, hearing only the clink of glasses, the low rustle of fabric, the warmth of the ovens behind them. And then, slowly, the house quieted once again. The guests departed. The master retired. The lady closed her door. Below stairs, the cleanup began. Dishes scraped. Silver rinsed. Napkins gathered. Everything put back in place. The last fire was checked. The bell board was silent now. One by one, the servants returned to their narrow rooms. They didn't speak. They lit a single candle, took off their shoes, lay on their simple beds, and in that moment of quiet, tired, sore, but proud, they breathed. This was their life, one of service, of steadiness, of dignity kept in silence. They were the keepers of the grand illusion above, and as the candles flickered low and the halls fell into shadow, they slept knowing that by morning, they'd rise again, before the sun, before the masters, before the world stirred, to begin once more. The sun was starting to dip, just low enough to paint the garden in soft gold. Shadows stretched long over the trimmed lawns, and the gentle rustle of leaves stirred as the evening breeze began to drift through the hedges. This was the hour the house grew quiet, not from sleep, but from stillness. Above, the busy rush of daily life slowed. And outside, beyond the heavy double doors and marble steps, the garden came alive in its own quiet way. The hedges were tall and carefully shaped, forming winding paths and little hidden corners. They had been trimmed. Just that morning, their edges straight as rulers, the tops neat and green. You could walk beside them and trail your fingers along the cool, waxy leaves. Some parts of the hedge were grown high enough to give the illusion of walls, green, living walls that blocked out everything but the garden's own hush. Near the center of the garden stood a tall fountain carved from pale stone. The water bubbled up softly from the mouths of small marble fish, trickling down into a wide, round basin that glistened in the low light. The sound was calm, just a soft splash and gurgle, steady and gentle, never loud. Birds sometimes stopped to drink there, dipping their tiny beaks in the water before fluttering away again into the trees. The rose bushes, which lined many of the gravel paths, were still in bloom. Cream-colored roses, soft pink ones, and deep red ones too, almost purple in the fading light. The petals were so delicate they looked like they might float away if the wind picked up, but they held firm, standing proud on slender green stems, each one a soft breath of color in the green garden maze. Off to one side, on a flat patch of grass beneath a wide oak tree, a small table had been set, white linen cloth, fluttering slightly. A silver tray held a teapot, 2 cups, a small dish of lemon slices. A folded fan lay nearby, forgotten. There were 2 chairs, both wicker with little cushions. One of them still held the soft curve of where someone had been sitting only a few minutes ago. It had been an outdoor tea, nothing grand, just 2 ladies escaping the heat of the house. They had come out with parasols to shield them from the last rays of the sun, speaking in low voices, not because they were whispering secrets, but because the garden asked for quiet. It seemed wrong to be loud in such a soft space. One of the ladies had worn a wide-brimmed hat with ribbons that trailed down her back. The other carried a small sketchbook. As they sipped their tea, they spoke about the weather, about a letter that had arrived from Boston, and about the new fabric pattern they'd seen in a magazine. Their laughter was gentle, like the breeze itself, never sharp, never harsh. The kind of laughter that leaves no echo, just a feeling. Now they had gone inside again, perhaps to rest before dinner or to change into something finer. But the garden still held the memory of their presence. The 2 teacups, one with a smudge of rose-colored lipstick, the delicate scent of lavender perfume still hanging in the air like a note not yet finished. Further down the path, the garden grew more quiet. The sound of the fountain faded, and in its place came the chirp of evening crickets, soft, rhythmic, like tiny musicians tuning up for a nighttime performance. A butterfly floated past, slow and drifting, its wings almost transparent in the orange light. Marble statues stood at careful intervals among the hedges, one of a boy with a fishing rod, one of a woman holding a basket of fruit, and another of a lion reclining on a low pedestal. In the daytime, they were bright and white and clear, but at dusk, they turned golden, their edges glowing as if lit from within. The lion's mane caught the sunlight in curls. The woman's stone gown looked soft, almost like fabric. Even the boy seemed to be smiling in the warm light. A gardener moved quietly near the back fence, tying up some ivy that had grown too far. He wore simple clothes, dark trousers, a buttoned shirt, sleeves rolled up. He didn't speak. He didn't hum. Just the steady sound of twine wrapping around wood, of shears gently snipping stray branches. He knew this hour was sacred in its calm, and he treated it with reverence. A few bees still lingered around the flower beds, lazy now that the sun was lower. One drifted near a cluster of daisies and hovered there for a moment before choosing a bloom and settling inside. The petals barely moved. The gravel beneath your feet made a soft crunch with each step. Not loud, not sharp, just enough to remind you that you were still walking, still part of the scene. The stones were pale gray and warm from the sun, but already they were beginning to cool. The air was sweet, part flower, part fresh earth, part something older, something green and deep. The scent of summer held on, even as the evening came in to carry it gently away. By the garden wall, ivy curled up the bricks in dark green ribbons. It swayed slightly, and the sound of the leaves brushing against the stone was light, like a hand brushing silk. Above that wall, the sky turned from gold to peach, and then to soft lavender. It was a slow fade, like watercolor spreading over paper. You could sit here and not speak for an hour and never feel alone. The trees moved gently. A dove cooed from somewhere you couldn't see. A butterfly passed once more. The whole garden seemed to hold its breath between day and night, between movement and stillness. In another part of the garden, near the greenhouse, the head gardener had lit a small lantern. Its glow flickered against the glass panes. Inside, tropical plants slept in warm, moist air, unaware of the season outside. The lantern's light cast long shadows across the garden path, but no one walked here now. It was the hour between everything. The statues watched. The crickets sang. The last of the sun kissed the tips of the tallest hedges. And as the garden deepened into dusk, a stillness settled in fully. Not heavy, not final, just complete. The kind of quiet that wrapped itself around you like a shawl. This was not a place of loud joy or heartbreak. It was a place for gentle things, for slow walks, soft conversations, drifting thoughts, for noticing how the petals fell, one by one, for seeing how the light faded across marble, for hearing the sigh of a tree as it let go of the day. Even without people, the garden felt full, not crowded, but content. Everything in its place, every flower opened to the last bit of light, every statue standing, silent and strong, every breeze carrying the hush of approaching night. And as the parasols were folded and the tea cooled in the cups, and the lanterns flickered quietly on the steps of the house, the garden whispered the same message it did every evening. The day is done, rest is near, and in this quiet green world, all is well. The evening deepens. The sky, once painted in gold and soft peach, slowly darkens into a quiet blue. Not a harsh blue, but a deep, sleepy one, the kind that gently dims everything it touches. The last rays of sunlight retreat across the lawn, slipping behind hedges and curling into the folds of the garden's corners. One by one, lanterns are lit along the paths. Each flame flickers to life with a small sound. A tiny click, a gentle whoosh, and then a soft, steady glow. The light is not bright. It is not meant to be. It spills just enough to catch the edge of a stone bench, the trim of a flower bed, or the steps leading down to the pond. These lanterns hum quietly, their flames dancing behind glass, offering a slow and kind welcome to the night. A young maid steps outside for just a moment. She carries a small bundle of linens from the upper rooms, tucked neatly under one arm. But before returning indoors, she pauses just at the edge of the garden. Her shoes crunch gently on the gravel. She looks out, not moving, not speaking, only breathing it all in. The scent of the roses, the hush of the trees, the warmth of air still holding on to the day. Then, with a small breath and a faint smile, she turns and goes back inside. The door closes behind her with a soft click. By the statue of the lion, a tabby cat has found a resting place. Curled neatly at the lion's feet, its ears twitching now, and then at the sound of a cricket or the faraway flutter of wings. The cat purrs quietly, its sound barely heard over the whisper of breeze. It has chosen this spot as its throne, safe beneath the silent watch of stone and moonlight. The moon begins to rise. It lifts above the rooftops, round and pale, casting a silver tone over the marble and grass. Where once there was golden light, now there is silver shadow. It pools along the tops of the hedges and dances across the rippling surface of the fountain. Water continues to flow, steady, calm, never hurried. In the moonlight, it glows like melted glass, cold and clear. Somewhere near the greenhouse, a soft clink is heard. It is a servant gathering the silver tray from the earlier tea. He moves slowly, carefully. One cup makes a soft tink as it touches the saucer. He does not rush. He knows this is not an hour for rushing. His footsteps are soft on the gravel, and soon he disappears around the bend of the hedge, swallowed gently by the quiet. Closer to the garden wall, fireflies begin to flicker. One, then another. Then a few more. Their little lights blink softly in, the shadows appearing and vanishing like tiny stars caught between the leaves. There is no rhythm to them. No plan. Just gentle, living sparks, dancing in the cool evening air. Now and then, a leaf falls. It twirls slowly through the air, catching moonlight on its pale underside before settling soundlessly to the ground. No wind pushes it. It simply lets go, as if the tree had sighed, relaxed, and given it permission to rest. Back in the center of the garden, the fountain sings on. Its song has not changed, but in the dark, it seems softer, more thoughtful. The sound of water in the night carries differently, more slowly, more deeply. It doesn't rush. It doesn't echo. It simply exists, like breath in a quiet room. A breeze moves through the garden gates. It passes through the open iron bars, slips beneath the tall hedges, and weaves between the flower beds. It carries with it the scent of the distant city, the faintest trace of coal smoke and carriage dust, but it's softened now, changed. It mixes with roses and grass and stone, and becomes something entirely its own. It moves across your skin, cool and comforting, like a blanket pulled gently up to your chin. There's no one in the garden now. No voices, no footsteps, only the presence of things. A parasol forgotten on the bench, a small book of poetry left beside it, a silver thimble tucked into the folds of a cushion, waiting for its owner to return. The objects remain, even as the people have gone. They rest in the stillness, surrounded by gentle sounds, the chirp of insects, the gentle splash of water, the occasional flutter of wings in the trees above. And still, the garden breathes. Not in the way people breathe, but in its own quiet rhythm. The flowers close slowly for the night, petals folding, inward like hands at rest. The ivy hugs the brick tighter, the leaves softening in the damp night air. The grass leans, just slightly as dew begins to form, cool drops settling on each blade, one by one. From the second floor of the house, a window is open. Soft music drifts out, a slow piece, played gently on the piano, just a few notes at a time. No words, no singing, just sound, carried on the wind like a feather. It drifts into the garden, curling down the stone steps and wrapping around the base of the fountain. The notes settle in the corners, in the cracks between bricks, in the folds of flower petals. You listen, not with sharp attention, but with your whole self. It's not music meant to impress. It's music meant to comfort. As the moon climbs higher, shadows stretch and soften. The marble statues grow quiet in their presence. They watch with patience, unbothered by time or weather. Their stone eyes take in every detail, the swaying of the leaves, the quiet flutter of the fireflies, the rise and fall of the garden's rhythm. The greenhouse hums faintly. Inside, the warm air keeps the delicate plants sleeping soundly. The vines curl up their trellises. The orchids hold their colors even in the dark. A single candle burns on a table near the center, casting a golden glow over rows of potted plants. It's not for work. It's just so the plants are never alone. In the back, near the servant's gate, a soft whistle sounds. It's the gardener, finishing his rounds. His boots brush against the dirt path. His lantern swings gently from his hand. He's humming, not a song, exactly, but a soft, tuneless hum. The kind one does when the world is too quiet for words. He stops now and then to check a branch or gently tuck in a loose vine. He does not rush. He knows this is not a place for rushing. He stops by the fountain, watches the water for a moment, tilts his head as if listening to something only he can hear. Then he nods once, slow and sure, and turns away, lantern bobbing as he walks back toward the gate. His hum fades into the night. Now, the garden is still again. Everything in its place. Everything wrapped in silver and green. The sky above is deep navy now, with stars beginning to blink awake, one by one. They do not shine brightly, but softly, as if they, too, understand the need for gentleness. This is the hour when the house sleeps. Curtains are drawn. Candles are snuffed out. The sounds of the parlor and the clinking of dinner forks are long gone. Only the ticking of clocks remains inside. And out here, in the garden, time slows even more. The cat stretches once, then curls tighter beneath the statue. A breeze drifts across the pond. The roses close fully. Now, The air cools just enough to make the tips of your fingers notice. And you remain still and quiet. You do not speak. You do not move. You are simply present in a world made of stone and petal, of moonlight and memory. The Gilded Age does not shout. It does not demand. It only waits. Wrapped in ivy and lantern light, it offers you stillness. So let the hush settle over you. Let the gentle sounds fill your ears, the splash of water, the sigh of wind, the soft hum of life continuing. Here, beneath the stars and beside the fountain, everything is calm. Everything is still. Everything is just as it should be. And in this moment, the garden keeps its promise, that there will always be a place for quiet. The city begins quietly. Even though the buildings rise tall and the streets stretch out in all directions, there is a softness in the early hour. The light is gentle. The wind is calm. And though this is a place full of people and noise, right now, it's quiet. In New York, the sun lifts slowly over the Hudson River, shining on rooftops made of slate and tin. Shadows slide down the sides of early skyscrapers, narrow, elegant buildings with rows of windows and pointed roofs. They're not like the towering glass towers of today. These are proud and sturdy, made from brick and stone, each one anew. Step toward the sky. On the street below, the first carriages begin to roll out. The horses walk in a steady rhythm, hooves tapping gently on the cobblestone, tails swishing side to side. The drivers sit quietly, bundled in coats, holding the reins with gloved hands. Most don't speak unless they have to. The city is still waking, and they are part of that waking rhythm. Nearby, gas lamps hiss as they're turned off one by one. The long iron posts glow for just a moment longer, then fade into the morning. A boy with a long pole moves from lamp to lamp, shutting them down like someone pulling up. The cover's on a bed. You can still smell the faint scent of burnt gas in the air. It's sharp, but not unpleasant. It's the scent of the city being kept alive during the night. Further uptown, a line of carriages makes its way down Fifth Avenue. Inside them, men in suits check their pocket. Watches, some red newspapers, folded neatly in their laps. Women in long dresses sit beside them, gloves on their hands, hats pinned neatly in place. No one speaks much. The morning is not a time for loudness. It is a time for settling in. Down on the sidewalks, shopkeepers begin to open their doors. Wooden shutters are pulled back with a soft creak. Signs are wiped clean with dry cloths. Crates of fruit and bolts of cloth are carried out and placed carefully in the front. Windows. A man with a broom sweeps the edge of the sidewalk, his strokes even and slow. Each bristle makes a soft scratch against the stone. The smell of baking bread drifts from a small bakery on the corner. Warm, yeasty air curls out of the doorway, mixing with the cool city breeze. Someone inside whistles gently while kneading dough. The tune is soft and unsure, like a melody remembered from a dream. A bell over the door rings faintly as the first customer steps in. Just beyond that, a department store opens its tall glass doors. Inside, everything is polished, gleaming wood floors, mirrors framed in gold, tables with neatly folded gloves and satin ribbons. A pair of elevator attendants in smart uniforms stand at the ready, tipping their hats as shoppers begin to wander in. Their elevator isn't silent. It hums and clinks as it rises, but the sound is soft, like a lullaby made of machinery. At the opera house across town, the front steps are being swept. A man in a long coat leans down to polish the brass railing. He moves slowly, not missing a single spot. Inside, stagehands walk across the stage in soft shoes, checking ropes and curtains. The velvet seats, still empty, sit like red waves in the dark theater. The air smells faintly of sawdust, old wood, and something else, something sweet, like powder. Over in Chicago, the city feels different. The air is cooler, brisker. Lake Michigan breathes out a steady wind, tugging gently on coat sleeves and hat brims. But the city here is growing too, fast and full of energy. Brick buildings line the streets, new but solid. Their windows shine with the reflection of streetcars passing by. An elevated train rattles softly overhead. Its metal wheels hum along the track, not harshly, but in a quiet, distant way, like a song you hear through a wall. Below, people move along the sidewalks, their footsteps steady. A man sells papers on the corner, his voice muffled, almost lost in the wind. Morning edition. Extra. Morning edition. His call is part of the rhythm of the city, rising and falling like breath. Horse-drawn carts make their way through narrow alleys. Each one is loaded with boxes and barrels, deliveries for shops and homes. The horses move slowly, their breath visible in the morning chill. Their bells jingle faintly as they go. A street musician sits on an upturned crate near the corner of State Street. He plays a small tune on a violin, the notes barely louder than the wind. People pass him by with quiet nods. Some drop coins into the open case at his feet. The sound of the coin hitting the velvet is soft, like a raindrop on cloth. There's rain in the distance. You can smell it in the air before you feel it. The sky darkens just slightly. Then, a soft drizzle begins to fall. Not a storm, not a downpour, just the kind of gentle rain that slicks the cobblestones and draws steam from the street. Umbrellas bloom like flowers. A woman pulls hers open with a snap, holding it just above her hat, careful not to let the lace trim get wet. The rain makes the city quieter. Wheels splash through shallow puddles. Boots click more softly. People lower their voices. In a quiet alley, water drips from the edge of a wooden awning. The drops fall one by one, each hitting the stone with a sound that's soft and rhythmic, like the ticking of a slow clock. A small boy in a cap runs by, holding a folded newspaper above his head. His laughter echoes, just once before, fading around a corner. Inside a hotel lobby near Michigan Avenue, men gather in hushed groups. They talk business in soft voices. Fingers tap on ledgers. A cigar is lit with a long match. Strike, spark, hush. The flame glows for a moment, then settles into a steady ember. A bellboy passes through the room with a silver tray, his footsteps quiet on the marble floor. Even though there are many people, the city does not feel loud. Not in this hour. The streets hum. The buildings breathe. And life flows slowly, gently, through it all. Back in New York, the afternoon sun peeks out once more. Its light hits the tops of carriages, turning the black leather golden. A dog barks twice from a balcony. A child leans out to watch a street performer twist balloons into shapes. Somewhere down the block, a phonograph plays from it. Open window. The sound crackles just a bit, but the song is cheerful, an old waltz, slow and dreamy. A woman with a parasol walks carefully along the edge of the street. She lifts her skirts slightly to avoid a puddle, revealing polished boots beneath layers of cotton and lace. Her maid walks a few steps behind, carrying a small parcel wrapped in brown paper. Neither of them speaks. The city speaks for them, softly, in gasps and whispers. The elevated train glides overhead again. Its windows glow with oil lanterns. Inside, passengers sway gently with the rhythm of the track. A man adjusts his hat. A woman reads quietly. A pair of schoolboys stare out the window, counting rooftops as they pass. At the base of the train tracks, vendors open umbrellas over their carts. One sells roasted chestnuts, the smell warm and nutty. Another offers small paper fans and lace gloves. Their voices call out softly, not to shout over the noise, but to blend into it. The rain is gone now. The cobblestones are still damp, shining like polished stone in the returning light. A carriage wheel turns through a puddle, sending up tiny ripples that dance for just a second before going still again. In both cities, the day moves on. But for now, in this part of the story, it's still calm. It's still slow. You're here, walking gently along quiet sidewalks, beneath gas lamps and carved stone. You're listening, not just to the city's noise, but to its breath, its heart. This is the Gilded Age, not in the newspapers, not in the headlines, but in the moments between. The soft turn of a carriage wheel, the hush of rain on stone, the hum of a train overhead. And you are in the middle of it all. The sun has started to dip lower now. Its rays stretch longer across the rooftops, casting golden light onto the tallest windows. Chimneys begin to puff soft smoke. Shadows stretch across the wide streets of both cities, New York and Chicago, spilling like gentle ink into every alley, across every stoop, behind every wheel. In New York, the gas lamps are lit again, one by one. The lamplighter makes his rounds slowly. He wears a dark coat with the collar turned up and carries his long pole across his shoulder. He stops at each lamp, raises the pole, and gives a gentle push. Click. The lamp flickers, sputters, then glows. And he moves on. His steps are quiet. The city watches him work without speaking. Below the lamps, people begin their evening errands. A young woman stands outside a milliner's shop, admiring the display of hats behind the glass. She wears soft gloves and holds a small basket on her arm. Inside the shop, the owner rearranges the hats with care, dusting a ribbon here, straightening a feather there. No one is in a rush. There is no need. Down the block, a flower seller pushes a cart filled with roses, peonies, and sweet violets. The cart's wheels squeak. As it moves, he calls softly to passers-by, his voice barely louder than the wind. A little girl tugs at her mother's sleeve, pointing toward the pink blooms. Her mother smiles and nods. The man gently wraps a few flowers in waxed paper and ties the bundle with a bit of twine. The scent drifts softly into the air, sweet, earthy, familiar. In Chicago, the streetlights hum to life. They don't burn with gas here, at least not all of them. Some of the new ones run on electricity. The bulbs flicker a little at first, glowing like small stars behind their glass covers. It's a strange kind of light, not warm like fire, not soft like the sun, but steady, clean, bright, and slowly it spreads. The elevated train comes again, its metal tracks shimmering faintly in the new light. Passengers board and exit, some carrying parcels from department stores, others with papers tucked beneath their arms. The conductor stands, tall in his uniform, his voice soft but firm as he calls out the next stop. Adam Street. Next stop, Adam Street. The doors close with a quiet click, and the train rolls on. On the street below, boys gather near a small stand selling penny candy. They speak in hushed tones, their laughter rising now and then in little bursts. A hand reaches into a glass jar, pulling out a twist of taffy. A coin changes hands with a soft clink. Behind them, a barber sweeps his shop floor, the bristles of his broom brushing gently against worn boards. Nearby, a man in a long overcoat leans against a lamppost. He pulls a small notebook from his pocket and jots something down, perhaps a name, perhaps a time, perhaps just a thought. A tram rings its bell as it passes. The horses clip by, and the rhythm of the evening continues. Back in New York, a gentle fog begins to roll in from the river. It moves slowly, like breath, settling into the low spaces between buildings, wrapping around the wheels of carriages, drifting past window panes and porch steps. From high windows and brownstones and row houses, light glows through curtains, soft and golden. You can hear a faint piano playing in one of them. Just a few notes at a time. A pause, then more notes. Someone is practicing, or maybe remembering a song. On the stoop outside, a woman sits with a cup of tea. Steam curls from it into the cool air. She's wrapped in a shawl, watching the fog move. Behind her, voices murmur inside the home. Quiet conversation, the clink of silver on china, the creak of a wooden chair. Across town, the opera is beginning. Carriages arrive one by one. Drivers step down and open the doors with a small bow. Silk skirts glide across the stone steps. Gloves are adjusted. Canes are tapped lightly on the ground. Men tip their hats. Women give quiet nods. Inside, the ushers speak in soft tones as they lead guests to their seats. The chandeliers above sparkle with gaslight. Dozens of tiny flames flicker and dance. The velvet seats hush as people settle in. Programs rustle like dry leaves. And then the music begins. Strings rise, low and slow. A single, soprano voice follows, clear and warm, floating above everything. Even outside the theater, you can hear it faintly. In the alley beside the building, a small group of children gathers, listening with wide eyes. One of them hums along, softly and off-key, pretending to be the singer. They don't speak much. They just stand together in the shadows, listening to the voice that slips through the cracks in the wall. Farther downtown, a restaurant begins to fill. The tables are set with white cloths and small lamps. Gentle conversation rises and falls like waves. A waiter glides between the tables, carrying silver trays. The kitchen hums behind a swinging door, pans tapping, water boiling. Someone calling out an order. The scents of roast beef and warm rolls drift into the dining room. The sound of a glass being set down, click. A quiet toast, to your health. A soft chuckle. In the hotel lobbies of both cities, the fire is lit. The flames are low, glowing softly behind iron grates. Guests read newspapers or letters. A bellboy passes through, carrying a trunk. A gentleman leans against the mantel, warming his hands. His watch chain gleams in the firelight. Somewhere in Chicago, a telephone rings. It's still a new sound in many homes. A sharp ring, then silence. A hand picks up the receiver. A quiet hello. Hey. Pause. Then conversation, slow and formal. Voices connected by wires strung from building to building. In New York, on a quiet rooftop, someone stands with a telescope. He adjusts it carefully, scanning the skyline. The stars are just beginning to show. The city sparkles beneath him. The rooftops, the lamps, the glowing windows, it all feels like a dream. Like something painted in light. Down in the streets, the city becomes softer still. Footsteps slow. The carriages move at a gentler pace. The horses breathe steadily. A newspaper boy curls up on a crate, pulling his cap down over his eyes. A bakery closes its door. The flower cart is pushed away, petals still, clinging to the wooden boards. The gas lamps flicker once more in the fog. In a boarding house, someone strums a guitar softly. The notes float down the stairwell like feathers. A woman in her room brushes her hair in slow, even strokes. A child sleeps with a doll tucked beneath her arm. A clock ticks, and still, the city breathes. Even as night falls, even as the windows go dark, even as the fog thickens and the music fades and the final train rattles overhead, it breathes. It's not loud, not sharp or jarring, just steady, just soft, like the distant echo of hooves on wet cobblestone, like the hiss of a lamp, like the sigh of wind through iron gates. You are here, walking through both cities at once. New York and Chicago, two great hearts of the Gilded Age, different but joined, each with its rhythm, each with its glow. You are not rushing. You are not missing anything. You are watching the world slow down, one light at a time, one quiet step at a time, one soft breath at a time. Let's take a slow step inside. The front door eases shut behind you, soft and solid. A quiet click echoes as the latch finds its place. The hallway is still, filled with a calm golden hush. A tall wooden clock ticks gently to your left, each second moving at its own unhurried pace. You're inside a Gilded Age home, not a loud one, not filled with noise or rush, but one that whispers elegance in every corner. Your feet touch a soft, patterned rug, woven in deep reds and warm browns. It covers the polished floorboards, beneath which shine faintly under the light of a nearby gas lamp. That light flickers just slightly, swaying behind its frosted glass globe, casting shadows that rise and fall gently on the wall. Everything feels a little golden in here. Not too bright, not too dim, just warm. To your right, a large parlor room opens. You take a quiet step in. The room smells of beeswax, old books, and clean fabric, subtle, layered, comforting. The furniture rests like sleeping figures. Against the far wall stands a grand velvet sofa, curved and wide, its dark green fabric rich to the eyes. Its wooden frame is carved by hand, the arms shaped like delicate scrolls, with tiny grooves smoothed from years of polishing. Matching armchairs sit beside it, smaller, but made with the same care. Each piece of wood gleams with effort. You can almost hear it, the slow, soft sound of someone's hand running a cloth along the armrest, polishing, buffing, making it shine, not with harsh strokes, but with care. That kind of quiet. Labor stays in the air. It becomes part of the room. The wallpaper wraps the space with gentle pattern. It's soft cream with tiny pink roses climbing in twisting vines. Not loud, not showy, just delicate. From corner to corner, the walls feel like they're dressed in a gentle garden. Tiny golden pinstripes trail down in even rows. If you lean close, you can just see where the seams were carefully matched by hand. No machines here, just a steady ladder, paste, patience. Along one wall stands a small table, mahogany, perfectly round. Its legs are narrow, carved with quiet spirals. On top of it sits a porcelain lamp, its base painted with lilacs, the shade trimmed with lace. You reach your fingers toward the edge of the table, letting them run along the polished surface. It feels smooth, like glass, but warm. The kind of smoothness that only comes from time and touch. There are books here, too. not stacked high, but placed thoughtfully. One open on a velvet footstool, its pages turned just halfway through. Another rests beside the lamp, bound in dark leather. Gold lettering on the spine glints in the lamplight. A small pair of reading glasses sits nearby, folded and forgotten for now. You imagine someone was here earlier, reading, slowly. Maybe aloud, maybe to no one but themselves. A faint breeze moves through the lace curtains. They sway just slightly, barely enough to notice. But they move, and the light through them dances on the wallpaper, in soft, fluttering shapes. It's like watching shadows play inside a dream. Outside, the evening hums low. You hear the creak of a gate, the chirp of a cricket. The city is far away. You move toward the drawing room. Each step is cushioned by thick rugs. Your footsteps don't echo here. Instead, they settle softly, as though the house is absorbing them. The drawing room is a little cooler, lit only by 2 wall sconces, each with a tiny glass shade, shaped like a tulip. Their glow is gentle, golden yellow, casting slow-moving shadows on the ceiling. The room is filled with tapestries. One hangs over the fireplace, a great woven piece showing a woodland scene. A stag stands at the edge of a quiet stream. Trees arch above him, their leaves made from thread, one stitch at a time. The fabric is old, but carefully kept. The edges are trimmed with dark green braid. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the faint brushing of fingers smoothing the corners, straightening the fringe. The walls are wood-paneled here, not dark and heavy, but warm and honey-colored. They rise up to a ceiling edged in white plasterwork, shaped into soft scrolls and leaves. You run your hand along the wood panel. It's cool at first, but then it responds to your warmth. Smooth, quiet, ancient, not in years, but in feeling. Against one wall, a small writing desk waits. It's tucked just beneath a tall window. The desk is narrow, made of rosewood, with slender legs and a roll-top cover. That's been pushed open. Inside, you see small drawers, each labeled in fine script. Receipts, invitations, calling cards. One drawer is slightly ajar, revealing a few neat envelopes tied with blue ribbon. A silver pen rests in a holder, beside a crystal inkwell, its surface slightly clouded with use. A straight-back chair with a velvet cushion stands in front of the desk. You imagine someone sitting there earlier, back straight, elbows close, writing a letter by hand. Dipping the pen, pausing, dipping again, maybe smiling quietly at their own words before folding the paper just so. Wax sealing, ribbon tying, a whole conversation wrapped in care. There's a tea table nearby. It's been cleared, but the marks are still there. The ring of a teacup, the faint outline where the sugar bowl once sat. A lace doily remains, embroidered with forget-me-nots in soft blue. Someone has brushed away the crumbs, but not all. You see one tucked into the fold, the kind of detail that stays behind after silence returns. To your left, another lamp glows softly, resting atop a low bookshelf. Its base is made of stained glass, pieced together in swirls of amber and green. It throws patterns across the wall, shapes that shift with the flicker of the flame. The bookshelf is short and heavy. You crouch near it, fingers brushing the spines, cloth, leather, embossed titles, volumes of poetry, travel journals, a cookbook or two. The room smells of lavender and coal. It's an odd combination, but not unpleasant. A balance of warmth and floral calm. The scent seems to come from the fireplace, where a log sits half-burned, embers low and glowing orange. The iron grate around it is shaped like ivy, with curling vines and tiny leaves etched into the metal. You watch the ember for a moment, then two, as it breaks, glows brighter, then fades again. On the far side of the room, heavy curtains frame a doorway. They're not drawn closed, just gently pulled back with tasseled ropes. The fabric is thick velvet, deep burgundy. You brush your hand along the edge. It sighs beneath your fingers, folds falling like slow water. Beyond the curtains is a small music room, but we won't go there just yet. You stay here, letting the room wrap around you. It doesn't ask anything of you. It doesn't move fast. It doesn't shine too bright. Everything here is built to welcome stillness, a pause, a breath. The shadows continue their quiet dance. From wallpaper to tapestry, from curtain to cushion, everything softened by time and gaslight. You step to the side again, noticing the shine of the floor beneath your feet. It reflects you in faint outline, just enough to see the shape of your body, the folds of your sleeve, the slight movement of your head. The boards creak faintly beneath your weight. Not a protest, just a memory. This floor has carried many feet. Some light, some hurried, some like yours, slow and careful. You lean near a cabinet along the wall. Its doors are made of glass, and inside, rows of porcelain rest on velvet-lined shelves. Teacups with painted rims, saucer plates with gold leaf, a pair of small crystal vases shaped like teardrops. One is filled with dried lavender stems. The other is empty. You look at them for a moment. They look back. You press your fingers gently to the cabinet's glass. Cool, clear, still. You're not just looking at decoration. You're touching time, patience, detail, choices made with care and kept with quiet pride. And the room breathes with you. Every cushion, every chair, every soft glow and folded drape. This is not just a parlor or a drawing room. It's a poem of comfort written in furniture, wallpaper, and soft light. You drift slowly into the next room, crossing the threshold like water through silk. This space is different, not louder, but deeper in mood. The air seems to hum with warmth, and the shadows stretch a little longer across the floor. You've stepped into the music room. It's not grand like a ballroom. It's intimate, close, a private space meant for small audiences or just one soul at the keys. A piano rests near the tall window, its body made of dark walnut polished to a soft sheen. The lid is propped open, revealing ivory keys lined like perfect teeth, some faintly yellowed with age but still whole, still singing. You imagine the notes. A gentle melody played slowly, each key pressed with intent. No rush, just rhythm. A waltz, perhaps, or something softer, meant to echo off the ceiling and disappear into the velvet curtains. A metronome sits on a small shelf beside the piano. Its pendulum leans slightly to the left, frozen in time. The tick-tick-tick it once gave is now silence, but somehow you can still feel the timing in the stillness. A chair with a plush red cushion stands before the keys. Someone's presence lingers in the shape of the cushions. Folds, in the faint indent from a hand once rested on the edge. You run your fingers along the smooth wood, cool and solid, not just an instrument, a companion in quiet evenings. Behind you, a harp waits near the fireplace. Its golden frame curves like a swan's neck. The strings are delicate, barely visible in the low light, but you know their tone would shimmer if touched. You imagine a soft pluck, just one note, and the room answering back with hush and grace. Along the wall, a low cabinet holds sheet music. The pages are yellowed and soft. You gently lift one. The title is handwritten, the ink faded but still lovely. You don't need to read the notes to feel the music. Just holding it makes your breath slow. There's something sacred in music made at home, in private. In the far corner, a gramophone stands. Brass horn curving upward like a golden flower, its body made of burled wood with a winding crank on the side. No sound escapes it now, but you imagine its quiet crackle, the first scratch of a record starting to turn. A gentle waltz, a lullaby. Voices recorded decades ago, still able to fill the room when given the chance. The light here is lower, flickering behind lace curtains drawn against the night. The lace filters the gaslight, turning it soft and creamy, almost like candlelight. Shadows curl along the corners of the walls, and even the ceiling feels too. Lean in, cozy and calm. You pause, standing still, listening to nothing and everything. There's a hush to this home, a hush filled not with silence, but with presence, a kind of listening stillness. Every room feels like it's watching, waiting, holding its breath gently, not with tension, but with deep patience. You turn toward the hallway once again, walking slowly past oil paintings in gold frames. Each portrait looks out, its subject dressed in layers of brocade or lace, stiff collars, or fine hats. Their eyes, though painted, seem thoughtful, as if they, too, are remembering how it felt to sit in these rooms with nothing but the ticking of a clock or the scratch of a pen to mark time. You enter a sitting room next, smaller than the others, more private. This room isn't for guests. It's for family, for solitude. The walls are papered in dusky rose, with an embossed damask pattern that catches the light like soft embroidery. A single armchair faces a window, its back high, its arms wide, covered in pale velvet. The cushion has thinned from use, and the pillow on its back is misshapen just slightly, like someone had been leaning into it for years. A knitted blanket lies folded across the arm. Beside the chair is a round side table, bearing a porcelain cup and saucer, still clean but clearly used. A book lies, open beside it. Poetry, perhaps, or a novel filled with sighs and soft glances. The carpet here is thicker, muting your steps until you feel like you're gliding. A candle rests in a brass holder near the hearth, unlit but ready. The fireplace itself is narrow, more decorative than useful, lined with glazed tile in a soft sea green. On the mantel sits a row of framed photographs, black and white, some of babies, others of people posed with still, composed smiles. A lifetime arranged along the edge of warm stone. You feel time folding gently in this room. Every object holds a memory. A tea ring on a sideboard, a fray in the curtain hem, a button lost behind a chair. These are the things not seen in grand homes or catalogs, but felt, touched, lived with. You move now toward the back of the house, where the light grows even dimmer, deeper. Here, you pass a study. The door is slightly ajar. Inside, leather armchairs sit under tall bookcases. Their arms are smooth with wear, creased from elbows that rested. There night after night. A desk stands in the center, not tidy, not messy. Papers folded neatly. A pen laid sideways. A pipe in a glass tray, half full of cold ash. The rug beneath is darker than the others, patterned in deep navy and crimson. Your steps feel even more muffled. Here, like sound doesn't dare rise above a whisper. The windows are drawn with heavy brocade curtains, the kind that hush the world outside. Even the lamp here has a thicker shade, green glass that casts everything in mossy light. On a small end table, there's a globe. Your fingers trace its edge slowly, circling oceans, mountains, continents. Marked in soft ink. You feel how this room once held thoughts, ideas, plans whispered in the evening. The walls smell faintly of tobacco and parchment. This was not a loud man's room, but a quiet one. A place for thoughts and long letters, maybe read aloud only once, then folded away. A place to sit in silence and listen to the clock echo on the wall. You leave the door as you found it, slightly open. Returning to the hallway, you find yourself approaching a side corridor. Here, the wallpaper changes again, lighter, striped in blue and gold, the pattern thinner, simpler. Perhaps these are the guest rooms or smaller sitting areas tucked away for privacy. A small sconce glows here, the flame behind its frosted globe barely moving, but enough to cast thin shadows that stretch along the narrow hall. A mirror hangs nearby, tall and oval, with a gilded frame. You see yourself, faintly, more a silhouette than a reflection. The hallway continues behind you, and the house seems to extend endlessly in silence. You raise a hand slowly and touch the mirror's edge, feeling the carved detail beneath your fingers. It's cold, smooth, gently curved, just like the home itself, refined but welcoming. You pass one final room before the stairs. It's a guest bedroom, unused for now. The bed is dressed in lace and linen, high off the floor, with a carved headboard in dark oak. The pillows are fluffed, the coverlet turned down. A small pitcher and basin rest on a marble washstand. Nearby, a vanity stands, its drawers closed but its surface clean, holding a brush, a hand mirror, a bottle of lavender water. The chair beside it is small, upholstered in peach velvet, the fringe along the bottom soft as breath. You run a hand along the bed's edge. The linen rustles slightly under your fingers. The room smells faintly of rosewater and starch. You imagine a guest arriving with gloves and hat, setting them down carefully. A quiet visit, a slow stay. Everything here is prepared for stillness. A single candle rests on the windowsill. It's been lit before. The wick is blackened at the tip, but not tonight. Tonight, the house is quiet. Every room has offered you something. Velvet and wood, flicker and shadow, sound and scent. A life of care, of calm, of presence. You return to the central hallway once again, standing now beneath the golden chandelier that has hung above for a century or more. Its crystals twinkle faintly, even in low light, catching reflections from every soft lamp in the home. You look up. The ceiling above curves gently, traced in pale plaster vines. You're standing still now, surrounded by furniture carved by hand, by wallpaper chosen with care, by light made not to dazzle but to warm. It's not just decoration. It's not just wealth. It's atmosphere. Elegance that doesn't shout. Comfort that doesn't demand. A quiet world built not just to be seen, but to be felt. And as the clock ticks gently on the wall, echoing into the evening, you take one more slow breath and listen. Not for noise, but for the peace that lives in soft light and silence. You step gently into a long, narrow hallway, one where the hush deepens with each footfall. The air is warmer here, faintly scented with beeswax polish and the delicate musk of old paper. Walls rise tall on either side, lined with bookcases that stretch nearly to the ceiling, their dark wood polished to a muted gleam. Inside them, the books rest, shoulder to shoulder, cloth-bound, leather-bound, gold-lettered. Their spines display titles and faded script, some barely legible from years of soft hands and steady reading. There's something sacred in the presence of so many books, the way they hold not just stories but time, whole thoughts sealed in silence. You pause and run a single finger along one spine, feeling the soft texture of linen, stretched overboard. The color is a faded forest green, the title embossed in gold, still bright in places where light has not reached. This hallway leads to a study. You pass under an arched doorway and into a room where everything slows. The space is dim, but not dark. Lamplight glows from corners, filtered through glass shades in amber and cream. Shadows are long but gentle, folded along the edges of the Persian rug, under the heavy mahogany desk, across the broad armchairs draped in wolf rose. The fire in the hearth crackles low and steady. Near the fire, a reading chair beckons. Its cushions are soft with age, curved from years of long reading hours. Aside, table stands within reach, holding a teacup on a porcelain saucer and a pair of gold-rimmed spectacles laid carefully. Next to a closed book, you take a seat and lean back. The warmth of the fire touches your ankles. From the mantel, you hear the faint tick of a clock, not loud, not insistent, just steady, a metronome of thought. Across the room, a desk stands at the window, not cluttered, just well used. A few pages lie open, edges slightly curled. A glass inkwell sits in a small brass tray, beside a feather quill and a simple blotter. You watch the soft glimmer of the pen's tip catch the lamplight. No ink has been spilled. Every letter must have been written with care, with intention. And here, on the far shelf, a set of journals, bound in worn calfskin, numbered with small gilt letters. Each one, likely filled with the gentle scratch of thoughts formed slowly, without rush. Sentences written in longhand, considered, before they were ever spoken aloud. Pages of poetry, or reflections on a play, or transcriptions of conversations, heard at a dinner table and stored for remembering. This was not a loud room. It is not a room of declarations or debate. It is a room for deep breath, for inward turning, for art that speaks softly. Your eyes wander to the walls. Framed prints and paintings hang in clusters. A still life with fruit, its oil surface so textured you can almost smell the orange peel. A portrait of a woman in profile, her expression unreadable and timeless. A landscape of fog-covered hills in soft gray and blue brushwork. Each painting is lit by the low angle of the lamp, giving the impression of moonlight captured indoors. Even the frames hum with care, carved, gilded, handled gently by hands that respected what they held. In the corner of the study stands a tall phonograph, its brass horn curled like a trumpet flower. You imagine the delicate sound of a string quartet emerging from it, warm, a little scratchy, playing softly into the evening air. Chopin, perhaps, or a lullaby from a music box long wound down. And above the mantel, a small shelf of poetry rests undisturbed. Keats, Byron, Emily Dickinson. The pages have been read many times, judging by the creased corners, the soft-spined bend of use. You take one down and open to a random page. The print is small, the verse tight and ordered, but between each line there is so much space to breathe, to imagine, to pause before turning the page. It's this pause that defines the room, this whole house even, not absence, Not emptiness, but calm. A decision to let beauty settle instead of dazzle. You close the book and set it gently back on the shelf, fingers lingering for just a moment. From here, you walk softly through a narrow doorway into a smaller anteroom, one with lower ceilings and a long window that looks out over the garden. A writing desk sits here, delicate and feminine, with a curved backend, slender legs. Its surface is immaculate, holding only a few cherished tools: a crystal inkwell, a pale pink blotter, a small porcelain tray with pressed violets inside. This is a place where letters were written, slowly, with attention, where someone might have paused between lines to look out at the sunset or sip tea from a delicate cup. A place where language was given room to breathe. Beside the desk is a small bookshelf of literary works: Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, Elizabeth Barrett Browning. There are bookmarks tucked between pages, some made of lace or ribbon. You can almost feel the echo of someone sitting here, shawl over shoulders, candle burning, scribbling quietly on fine paper. On the far wall is a painting done in watercolor, light and soft. It shows a theater at intermission. Ladies in gloves and feathered hats lean toward one another, whispering. Gentlemen in black coats stand near velvet curtains, hands clasped behind their backs. No one shouts. No one rushes. It's all suggestion. You step closer, and the painting seems to shift with your gaze, alive with unspoken stories. And then, farther down the hall, you enter what must be the music salon. The room is long, with a ceiling slightly domed and pale pink walls that reflect the light like a soft shell. A piano rests under the front window, its top open, sheet music laid neatly upon it. The pages are yellowed, but handled with care. No tears, no creases. A delicate bookmark peeks from the middle, perhaps where the last melody left off. Beside the piano is a cabinet filled with music scores: opera, sonatas, waltzes, lieder. You see names like Verdi, Puccini, Schubert, and Debussy etched in faded gold. Not just performances, affections. Each song a language of the heart, one that didn't need to be sung in words. Against the opposite wall, a chaise lounge faces inward, piled with cushions in pale cream and sage. Someone might have once reclined here, eyes closed, listening to a loved one play, or perhaps reading a novel aloud while a sonata drifted in from the next room. Light from above filters in through gauze curtains. It glows golden on the carpet, painting thin patterns of floral shadow that move as the breeze stirs the hem of the drapes. You hear it now, the whisper of air. Nothing else. Just the soft hush of fabric brushing fabric. And then, a sound. A page turning. Imagined, but vivid. The soft rasp of paper lifting from paper. You step back into the hallway once more, and pass a side alcove where a bust rests on a pedestal. A sculpture of a woman's head, carved in smooth marble, her features serene. Her gaze is angled downward, eternally thoughtful. A small brass plate beneath bears no name, just the date, 1883. In the niche beside it, more books wait, thin volumes with soft covers, perhaps chapbooks or personal essays. One lies slightly ajar, its cover a dusky blue. You lean in, gently open it. Inside, the handwriting is real, not printed. A journal, or perhaps a shared commonplace book. A collection of quotes, favorite lines, sentences written twice to feel their weight. There's something deeply personal about it. A glimpse into someone's mind, preserved through ink and silence. You close the cover again, carefully, as if tucking someone's thoughts back to rest. And then, a hush again, not empty, not still, just full of thought, the kind that lingers in corners and shelves and faded upholstery. You look once more toward the fireplace in the study, where the flames still flicker low. The embers glow warmly now, casting a shifting light across the spines of the books, across the brass knob of the writing desk, across the folds of a woolen throw waiting on the chair. This is not a loud home. It does not demand your attention, but if you stay still long enough, it offers something far deeper. A world of quiet culture, where art lives not in galleries, but in daily life, where books are not decoration, but companions, where the simple sound of a pen moving over paper can fill a room more completely than any orchestra ever could. You wander deeper into the home, further into a world shaped by thoughtfulness and softened by time. Past the study and music room, You reach a tall set of double doors with etched glass panels, quietly shimmering in the lamplight. You push them open, and they yield without resistance, revealing a gallery beyond. Not grand in scale, but intimate in spirit. A space set aside for art not to be admired in passing, but to be lived with. The walls here are a gentle cream, and the ceiling slightly vaulted, edged in subtle plasterwork. The paintings are smaller than in public museums, portraits, landscapes, still lives, but each one carefully chosen. There are no plaques, no loud colors, no explanations. Just frames that seem to float on soft walls, suspended in the hush. Oil brushstrokes catch the low light in tiny ridges. A bowl of apricots rendered in golden tones. A woman seated at a writing desk, pen paused, gaze far away. A forest trail in autumn, the trees painted with patient detail, each leaf suspended mid-fall. The room smells faintly of wood and old varnish. A rug muffles your steps. On one wall, beneath a portrait, stands a low table with a pair of chairs, each upholstered in silk the color of dried lavender. Between them, a folio rests. You sit gently, careful not to disturb the silence. The folio is filled with sketches, charcoal, pencil, ink. Many appear to be drawn by hand and signed, perhaps by members of the family. There's an unfinished portrait of a child, a quick sketch of a dog dozing beside a fireplace, a woman with a parasol rendered in light, whispery lines. There's something intimate in the incompletion, as if the artist had stepped away only moments ago, brush still damp with vision. Above you, a small skylight lets in the last blush of evening. The light is softening. The blue of the sky deepens, taking on that quiet tone just before night. And with it, the mood of the gallery shifts, not to darkness, but to something deeper, something inward. You feel the house settle a little, as if the walls themselves are exhaling. To one side of the gallery is a writing nook tucked beneath a tall window. A roll-top desk, slightly open, reveals small compartments, each one holding the tools of careful thought. A pressed flower in a paper envelope, a letter tied with a ribbon, a tiny gold seal with a crest stamped into wax. In one cubby rests a volume of poems, Emily Bronte. Perhaps its edge soft from use. You lift it gently, and the scent of age and ink drifts upward. The pages crackle just slightly as you turn them, each one thick, textured, still strong after so many years. And written faintly in pencil along the margin of one page, just one line, underlined twice, is a note. A name, maybe, of the reader, maybe of the person the poem was meant for. A record of thought, caught like breath on a mirror, nearly faded. You leave the gallery and return to the hallway, where the sounds shift once more. There is no music here, no voice. Just the whisper of the wind as it brushes against the window panes. A soft creak of wood. The home responds like an instrument, each quiet sound an echo of the life within it. You pass through a narrow door into a modest drawing room, one not for entertaining, but for quiet gathering. The furniture is simple, but elegant. Two sofas facing each other with a small table between them, set for tea. On the table, a small stack of volumes, essays, perhaps, or moral philosophy. The edges of the pages are gilded, reflecting tiny pinpricks of light. A pair of reading glasses rests on top. Nearby, a lace doily covers a side table, and a crystal vase holds 3 fading roses, their petals soft, curled inward, a whisper of perfume lingering in the air. On the far side of the room, a cabinet with glass doors reveals an assortment of curiosities. A carved figurine from Florence, a fan made of ivory and lace, a folded newspaper from years ago, preserved for a reason known only to the collector. You open the cabinet and study each item carefully. None of them are loud. None demand attention. They invite it gently. These were objects not just collected, but cherished. Chosen for beauty, yes, but also for memory. Beneath one shelf rests a book of plays. Shakespeare's comedies and tragedies, bound in worn leather. You flip through the pages. Marginalia dots the edges, short notes in tight, slanted handwriting. Some lines are underlined, tiny stars drawn beside them. Someone read this deeply, perhaps read it aloud, in front of the fire, to someone they loved. The quiet culture of the home was never passive, it was alive, lived in, shared. Even now, you can imagine the hush before a monologue. The turn of a page before a line is spoken into the room. From decades of use, each step is silent beneath your foot. At the top, a landing opens into another reading room, this one smaller, more personal. A chaise rests under a window, with a shawl draped across the back and a pillow fluffed at one end. A book lies open on the cushion, as if someone had just stepped away. A single page bent. At the corner, the lamplight here is dimmer, golden and low, like the last whisper of day. You walk to the book and read a passage. It is soft, rhythmic, and slow. The words speak not of excitement, but of reflection, the kind of prose that winds inward. A mirror turned toward thought. You close it gently and replace it. The walls are lined with more shelves, some filled with novels, others with periodicals and journals. Here a collection of travel essays. They are memoirs, a row of volumes on art history. The more you look, the more you see. How broad the curiosity was, how layered. This was not a house of idle wealth, but of quiet seeking, where knowledge was savored, where beauty was not collected to impress, but to inspire. From the corner of the room, you hear a clock chime. Soft, for notes, then silence. Night has begun to fold itself around the house. You step out into a corridor lit only by sconces, their flames low behind frosted glass. The shadows along the floor are long and still. You pass a small table with a collection of calling cards, names in cursive, edges gold-tipped. Behind them, a framed photograph of a man and woman seated beside each other, not smiling, but not stern either. The stillness in their faces is familiar now, a kind of inward warmth. The photograph is faded at the edges. The corners curl slightly, the past leaning softly forward. Down the hall, a final door stands ajar. Inside is a room lit entirely by candlelight. The wax tapers glow steadily, their light flickering across the walls. This is a room of reflection, perhaps a small library or personal retreat. The ceiling is low, the shelves close. You feel the embrace of the space. On the desk lies an open book with handwritten music, simple notation, with lyrics penned. Below in graceful script, a hymn, or perhaps a lullaby. A chair sits slightly askew, as if someone had just risen. A shawl draped over the back. A teacup half full. You imagine the music once played here, not for performance, but for peace. Not to impress, but to soothe. The flame of one candle flickers near the edge of a shelf. You walk to it and find a final set of volumes, small, narrow. Some are diaries, some chapbooks of poetry printed in limited runs. You open one, and the verse inside is sparse, deliberate, the kind of words that echo longer than they take to read. Outside the window, the night has settled. The world is dark, but not cold. The stars are beginning to flicker. Inside, the quiet of the house continues, soft and vast, like the space between words. You stand still now, and you realize the truth of it. This was never a house of silence. It is a house full of voices, just not the kind that shout. They whisper in paper and paint, in music and ink, in the brush of fabric and the quiet creak of wood. They live in the turned page, the paused breath, the space left after a sentence ends. And if you listen, truly listen, you can hear them still.